outrage when Michael Massey
What
comes
we
in.
need is
as
we
compared to
need
when
to bring
Flavio
the
comes
whole
in.
gang back. We want Bernie back, Max Mosley back. We want
my
Bernie,
God.
Max Mosley, Michael Massey, Flavio, Pat Simmons all to be running F1, and
You do know Max is
he
dead.
can. Look, listen.
Mosley.
Bernie Ecclestone is basically dead, and he's still talking to people.
Oh.
So, hello everybody, and welcome to the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast. See, I remember the name, Casual, who forgets
This is
it
take
every.
4.
Yeah,
This is
this is take one. It's take one. And we're joined this week, thankfully, by a guest who I'm looking forward to talking to, unlike having to talk to Casual every week. Ahmed, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself before Casual does.
Well, hello guys. My name is Ahmed Baokbah, as you know me, the same name on Twitter. Annoying on social media. Talk about F1, planes. I'm a commercial pilot under training.
Wow.
And F1 enthusiast. And pretty much, yeah, that's my life. F1 and planes, basically.
Two things
Thank
I
you,
love as
Jason,
well.
for having me.
No, thank you for
Go
joining.
on.
Casual, I suppose you should introduce yourself as well.
No, they know me already. They don't know you.
I'm
the guy that forgets the name of the podcast.
For
That's
anyone
me.
wondering, by the way, yes, I am wearing a faded Red Bull t-shirt because Red Bull, like my hairline, is fading from
receding.
dominance at the moment. Yeah, so we got a good bit to talk about, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot. By the way, first words, Spanish Grand Prix, the race. Ahmed, let's just get to it. How was the race for you? As a Lewis Hamilton fan, of course, there are certain things that you'd like, but still.
To be honest, there were so many good races this season, and the one thing that was missing for me is just seeing Lewis having a good session, or a good stint or a good race. And this race just simply, like, as a Lewis fan, hit the spot for me. Like, Lewis had a good race, and the race in general was good. Like, the race win was open for between 3 cars, in my opinion, and you have from the midfield and a little bit of the bottom tier qualified drivers all the way to the front. Like, these cars were working like how the butter would melt on a newly fresh toast on Barcelona. Something about Barcelona, when they reverted to the old layout, it just worked. It just showed basically that exactly that's the reason why it was built to work. Slow corners, medium corners, high speed corners, long straights. The good thing they reduced the DRS was showed that these drivers had to basically dive, not just breeze past. They had to dive to make the overtake. And we saw that in turn 1 a lot. Like, Lewis to overtake Sainz, he had to dive. Sainz to overtake Leclerc, he had to dive. They came with some consequences and context and here and there, but it was a racing move at the end of the day. And so from the top, and Max to overtake overtake George. I know a lot of people know the DRS still looks powerful on the RB Red Bull anyway. We've seen it in this race as well, like how powerful the DRS with them. But to overtake George, it wasn't easy. He had to literally, like, late brake to make the move. Overall, I think, I don't want to say it's the best race of the season, because every weekend we get a bang and we're like, this is the best race. No, this is the best race. And we'll see how the season goes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just really, really happy that Spain has kind of shown that what we were thinking over the last few races, where there seems to be weekend by weekend, you don't really know who's going to win, because the winner could have been very different this weekend with a couple of small changes to how the race went. That's really exciting. Like I said to Wimbo, him as well. I said, I don't really care if Max wins every race as long as we get races like this. Like, I would prefer Max not to win every weekend, but
100% agree.
But as long as he has to work like he did this weekend, and as long as someone else is close, I don't care. That's what F1's all about. The best team wins, fine, whatever. But Yeah, really, really exciting. What I liked was, as I predicted, McLaren, I kind of said I thought McLaren would win, and I know they didn't win, but what I thought would happen was, because of the tyre offset, by the end, it would be very, very close. And realistically, if you just change the start for Norris, he wins the race. George and Hamilton driving spectacularly. I think one thing I loved about this, we'll get to Ferrari later on, that wasn't a great show, but when it comes to Mercedes, I think what I like to see is Mercedes seem to actually be back now across a couple of different tracks. I think want to see them over a couple more weekends just to see if there's maybe issues that other teams face that cause them to look that way, because we've seen that before in the past couple of years. But Mercedes, the one thing you can always expect is George and Hamilton. When the car's good, they're both good. And look, I've talked a lot of shit about Hamilton, Russell, every driver before, let's be honest. But one thing I think you can say from this weekend is Russell is definitely not some wash driver and can definitely lead Mercedes. We saw that at the first turn. And Hamilton, although I will constantly say he's not at his peak, that for me was 2018, still driving at a very high level in the races. And if he can kind of get back to qualifying where he was before, I think we're going to see those two cars in it. So yeah, really exciting race and really exciting field. I'm looking forward to this. And first podium for Hamilton this year is insane. That stat is insane when you think about every that's insane. Like, just to think about.
He pulls up to the first race, either a win or a podium, and now you have to wait like insane. 9 races to see it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But I have something to say about the Mercedes, but I would like to hear the casual F1 fan what it has to say.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is something that I've looked for the last year or so. It's become a bit tough to, tell my friends or even my dad, honestly, that I'm pursuing this dream of following Formula 1 and making a career out of it, because I was doing something else throughout my life. And since the last couple of seasons have been a bit shit, and what that has done is it has made it tough for me to have a conversation with a few of my friends that, okay, you should try to follow this sport. Now where we are right now, I think F1 does not get much better than this. Honestly, in qualifying there were 7 drivers that if they nailed everything they could have got pole. I mean, again, in the end we saw Norris and Max pull out a bit extra, but we've never had that. At least in the last 10 to 12 years we've not had that.
I think it's 2011 2012 is the last time.
Yeah, we have to, but again that was 2012 was more of a case of unpredictability, where you're basically picking a rabbit out of the hat, and it could be anyone. We had Williams winning a race at that time, so anything could have happened in that season.
This is every race.
Yeah, every race, and you have 4 teams which are now, 3/10. That's the gap between the top 4. That's unimaginable, and it is going to change. We have Red Bull, Max, Red Bull and McLaren that are at the top. It will change a bit. We will have Mercedes. I think I can safely say Mercedes is going to win a race this season. I'm hoping Oscar wins a race this season. We'll come to him later as well. The thing is, as a fan, this is a sport that I can sell to anyone else. Yeah. And that's the most important thing for me. Anyone wins. I really can't give a fuck. Anyone can win.
The last thing to say about Mercedes real quick is just what I'm liking seeing is the conversations with James Allison. It feels like that team has stopped looking for silver bullets and they're just working on slow, small progress. And that's what's kind of getting... Because up until a couple of... Literally 3 races ago, I think, I was telling you that team will not be back till 2030. They're, because it was just every weekend we're looking at this crazy idea. It was just like, look, just relax and look for small gains like McLaren and Ferrari have. And this is where I'm kind of like, okay, they might actually be making progress now. And I'm
told
excited.
you, James Allison, he's no champ.
Yeah. I think
no
we were
pushover,
burned,
to be honest. And
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. The one thing that I never understood, and I know that if Toto did not give James the vacation after 2021, that guy could have just jumped out of Mercedes. And the sacrifice that I'm not taking a diss at Mike Elliott or anything. He's a great engineer, but yeah, he went into the spectrum of trying to find rocket science kind of designs, something not F1, more like, I would say. Like, I know a lot of people will tell me, well, no, come on, like, we've seen cars like this with the narrow inlets and everything, but no, the aerodynamics changed. It's not the same. Uh, the the From the 2017 up all the way to 2021, those cars had narrow inlets, but what made the difference is the barge boards. They changed the airflow and they reduced the drag around the rear tires and the rear wings, and that does not exist now with these cars. They have ground effect.
Yeah.
So when I saw Mercedes, and I remember I was telling my friend when I saw that James Allison will be the one in charge of the 2024 car, W15, first thing I told my friend was like, Mercedes is going to be in the mud. And he's like, what do you mean? You don't trust James? I was like, no, because this man said he's going to throw everything in the bin. He's keeping just the engine and the steering wheel, literally, and the halo. That's pretty much all what he kept in that car. Everything else is in the bin. So you are basically like, as if you're just joining in 2022, you know? It's like you're restarting over here. And I was like, and that is a scary step. You could actually be a proper midfield team. Bahrain showed it. They were a proper mid team. Saudi was a catastrophe. Watching how Norris pulled a whole second in Sector 1 on Lewis.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that because I was on... They had Lewis on board. And I can see just in those S's of Sector 1, like, Norris disappearing. And I remember I was in the paddock watching like this. And I look around me, I see everyone goes, holy shit. I was like, what's going on here? Like, how slow are they? And I look behind me, I see the Mercedes hospitality. I'm not kidding you not, they all went like this. It's like, what are we watching? Like, and I don't blame them reacting like that. So that's where I was like, there's no way this team could come back. And just as you said, enough of the silver bullet stuff, trying to find some new crazy design. They literally just changed the one front wing. And they brought a simple design for the front wing.
Yep.
They popped off in Canada.
Yep.
Spain, they didn't even bring an upgrade. They just reduced the floor weight.
If you think about back to 2022, and I know we have lots to talk about, so I'm not going to go on about this for too long, but if you think about back to 2022, looking at the Red Bull then, when you think about the design, it was kind of the most almost conventional. Everyone else was trying like crazy kind of bathtub side pods and, you know, Mercedes obviously with the zero side pods. If you think about just in terms of side pod design, it was very conventional of what we kind of expect from old Formula One.
It was a car made in the least lead time.
Yeah.
Adrian Newey
just... And that was the point. It was like Adrian Newey just knew, okay, look, it's all about the underfloor performance and the mechanical performance with these, so you keep it simple. And every time everyone else tried these crazy different designs, it was like, this just isn't going to work. So yeah, it was Mercedes finally got rid of that last kind of silver bullet they were trying, which was the weird front wing, and all of a sudden everything's in. So I think they understand the floor now, which is the most important. I still have my reservations for 2026 just because I wonder how it's going to go with a new kind of build again. But then at the same time, I also have the same issue with thinking about Red Bull, because I think Red Bull is going to be in the same position as Mike Elliott now in some ways going into 2026. And the reason I think that is, I think Balbo and Pierre Vacher are going to be thinking, they're going to be thinking very much like Elliott, which is, sure, Newey hasn't been around for the past couple of years, but now everyone knows it's us. So we've got to make sure this is brilliant, and you're under that pressure then, you know.
Could be, yeah. I mean,
maybe
that
not,
could be the case, but I think there's one thing that we're missing with Mercedes is Mike Elliott was he was not the technical director. I think he was technological head or something like this.
Yeah.
The thing is,
he was the chief technical officer, I think, CTO, right?
Yeah, something like that. So Mike Elliott and James Allison had been a duo since the Lotus days. And people don't, I mean, you don't
He's very
join
talented.
the dots in that way. Yeah. What happened with him was when Allison left, he kind of lost one half of the whole design process or the other side of the brain. And when that happens, that's when you are either paralyzed or you're basically either empowered.
Yeah. And that's where Newey's small, crucial part of kind of seeing the big picture.
I mean, Newey's genius is going to be missed, and there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But I'd still wait. I mean, the problem is, we'll get to Red Bull because I fear that the team is taking a very weird turn, at least in my, because the whole what Red Bull brand stood for, I don't really see it right now the way it used to be. The aggression,
like my
but,
faded T-shirt again.
yeah, something like that. And I think it's the best time to segue into this. Now, there's a lot of conversation about Red Bull not being the fastest car, McLaren being the fastest car. So let's get this thing out of the way, because even the post I wrote after the race was, is Red Bull the fastest car or is McLaren the fastest car? And a lot of people jumped in and said it's McLaren. To an extent, they are right. But what do you guys think? Is it just the case of McLaren being quite clearly the faster team, or how does the whole thing pan out in your view?
To be honest, I kind of agree with that to an extent.
Which part?
The car
Yeah.
is fast. The car is fast to win races. And not just one or two or three, can be competitive. And do you remember Mika Hakkinen and his
Yes.
comment?
He said that they would be the ones beating Red Bull.
So I had preview knowledge about that from a friend who works with SMC, and he was in the McLaren hospitality last year when McLaren were dog shit, literally, at the start of the season, before they start picking up their pace, starting from Spain.
Yeah.
And he told me in 2023 in Saudi, and imagine McLaren literally finished that race last
P17 and DNF, I think, wasn't it? Or
P8,
P19,
yeah, DNF or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this friend, he was talking to Mika, and they're friends. They know each other. And he said, I was talking to Mika, and he told me McLaren will be the team too. He's like, I asked him, who do you think could catch up? Do you think Mercedes, Ferrari? He's like, no, it's McLaren.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, Mika, I know you worked with these guys. Like, stop deriding them, and you won championship, you get it, like sympathy, vote, and all that. So it's like, no, I'm telling you, I'm serious. These guys gonna actually pick the pace and be the one to beat Red Bull. And I was like, it's like for the first time, I was like looking at this man, I was like, I don't know you, bro. Like, what happened to you? I was like, either you're delusional or you're high on drugs, or the heat of the Middle East smacking your head to the point that you don't know what you're saying. And looking at it now, this year, it's actually possible. They can beat Red Bull. If anything, this reminds me to something similar to the 2018 season. Ferrari had a fast car to win constructors and driver championship, but Mercedes had a fast driver.
I disagree.
No, wait. I know.
I think at the start of the season, yes, I agree.
Yeah,
Half, yeah.
exactly. But still, Ferrari could have won constructors with that car. Because Bottas finished what, P5, P6 in the driver's
Bottas
standing?
is a terrible driver.
Yeah, that's because Bottas sucks.
So Bottas finished like.
By the way, we love
P5.
Bottas in this
we love-
podcast.
yeah.
I'm definitely not a
yeah,
Perez
yeah.
fan. Definitely not.
So like Bottas finished I think P5 or P6 in the driver's standing.
Yeah.
and
P5 that
both
year, yeah.
Vettel,
P5.
yeah, and both Vettel and Raikkonen P2, P3. If anything, that car should have won the constructors at least, if not just the drivers. So this season, I think, is a little bit of a kind of something similar. And Mercedes in 2018, they were in races where Ferrari should have won. Mercedes' strategy was just far better, and they would work it around better. So the same thing we've seen in this race. Red Bull had a good start. Obviously, that's a max factor. It's not like the car will have the good start. The driver's factor there. When Red Bull told him you have to push and overtake George, don't waste any time behind him. He did that instantly. Why? Because they know the pressure they will get from Norris. Once he overtake Hamilton, he will be right behind them, and they do not want that. So they want Norris to deal with Russell and not vice versa. And it was almost something similar to what we saw in Imola, except Norris could not get the job done quickly, so he has the time and clean air and set up himself to be closing the gap to Max. Because Max was pushing on those tires to a cliff. And he did his job. Like that said, I pushed these tires to the end. One more push now I could get a puncture. So I've done all you guys asked me. Red Bull did their strategy properly, and now just wait for Norris to be well in those qualifying laps and be catching up to him. That happened in Imola because Norris did not have the pressure to be clawing positions up in position, up in position. So, if anything, I think if Norris was a little bit smart with his overtakes on both Mercedes, he wouldn't have wasted like 2 seconds. He lost 2 seconds in just a couple of corners fighting George. And because
That
George
cost him
was
the
so,
race.
exactly. So 2.5 seconds just fighting George, that's already that's your race right there. So yeah, I'm still believing that the McLaren has the fastest car at the moment. But again, this season we've seen a trade, like things could change from a race to another. Red Bull could come to Austria and be like, oh yeah, you guys were all delusional. They're the fastest again. And it could be again, we come to Silverstone and McLaren could be fast again. So it's just, this is what the casual said. Like every race is different. You don't know who's the second fastest, who's the third fastest, who's the fastest. And it just keeps changing. But the one thing that is clear this season, Max has a factor on that team. And the simple example is just look where Mr. Perez is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a guy, an Irish guy living in Mexico, as a Perez fan, you know that even I've been like, Perez needs to be replaced. This just is not good enough.
I mean, he has to say he has to say he's a Perez fan every podcast.
Yeah,
just to
because
stay alive.
I just want people to feel sorry for me. That's all. But no, look. What I was going to say is, if you look at the McLaren versus the Red Bull, for example, I still think the McLaren and the Red Bull are a little bit faster than the Ferrari and the Mercedes, right? I would say it's within 0.2 probably between those teams, so it's not a huge amount if everything's hooked up and right, but it's enough that they are the leaders. When it comes to McLaren versus Red Bull specifically, I think the Red Bull still has a very, very, very slight edge, right? But I think it's within 0.1. Like, I mean, you're talking where the driver makes a difference, first of all. But I think the bigger thing is that what I'm seeing from the Red Bull is that it's all about the narrow setup window now. So where Red Bull pull that last 10th out is in like a tiny, 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 tiny window of setup, which means that any one small thing goes wrong, like this weekend in practice, for example, when they couldn't dial out the understeer for a while, and I think they had to play around with the setup. All of a sudden, you're in that window, McLaren's faster. So McLaren was the faster car in the race. But I think it's just down to they're so tight on setup that it causes these issues. So I think we will see a Red Bull that is faster than a McLaren over certain tracks. But the problem is they're just so narrow on that window, and that's why we're getting these banger races, because if they're not bang on dialed into that setup window, all of a sudden the other teams are on top of them. McLaren obviously still have a deficit. Yeah, McLaren still have a couple of issues, which is, the start from Norris, whether that's Norris's fault or whether the engineers didn't get it dialed in.
Gearbox.
Yeah, exactly. And then the pit stops as well. You just know Red Bull's going to be metronomic on the pit stops, as we saw this weekend. I think Norris lost
1.9.
Yeah, and Norris
1.9.
was in 3 and 3.6, I think, or something like that. So that could have
I
lost
knew
in
it
the
was
race.
GG when I saw 1.9. I was like, GG.
Yeah, insane. So I think McLaren has their work cut out for two reasons. One is I think that they've still got they haven't been at the front like this in a long time. So you've got to work on your pit stops, you've got to work on your strategy, and you cannot count on Max Verstappen making mistakes, because Max just doesn't make mistakes anymore. It's like Lewis during his dominance. It's once these drivers get kind of into that feel of the car, you just can't expect them to make mistakes, and it's just what happens. So I think the good news
was
is
just one off.
Exactly, yeah, and I think the good news is that Norris and McLaren have the rest of the season now to kind of pressure test and get rid of those mistakes, like Red Bull going into 2021, where Red Bull in 2021 kind of everything finally came together for them, including Michael Massey. But sorry, I had to throw that in. But I think McLaren has time now to do that. So to make a long rant longer, what I'll say is I think that Red Bull is still technically the fastest when you take the whole package together. But it seems like any tiny problem now causes them to be on the back foot completely behind McLaren. So it's going to make a banger season, and I think 2025 we're going to have at least a 2-way title fight, if not a 4 or 5-way title fight.
If I may add something, and I know a lot of people called me delusional, you're an idiot, and honestly, look, I was never in a bad term with the Red Bull and Max fans, and I know there are the sane Max fans who, you know, yeah, they're okay, they're chill, they're cool, you know, like,
they don't exist.
and then there is the cuckoo ones, you know, like so. I remember when I saw Adrian Newey's comment. This is, by the way, before even Adrian announced that he's departing Red Bull. This was back in April.
Was this about the ceiling of the car?
Yes.
Yeah.
The upgrades are not going to be
And
that
so
impact.
I was like, is this clickbait article? So I go read through the article, and it looks like it's just a whole bunch of quotes of Adrian. I was like, Adrian is the type of guy who would not come out here and say something like that, because that's a man who loves challenge. You know, they would tell you we're crap, and they would be crap, but then it doesn't matter because he knows he could fix it, and they could win. So when he came up and said like the ceiling is gonna hit soon, I was like, oh boy, we're in for a good 2025, because I was expecting Red Bull to dominate this season.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh no, that ceiling hit sooner than that I expected. And I think the ceiling that, from what I'm seeing so far, I could be yapping, but I'm just like trying to analyze through the clouds, and from what I'm saying, it could be the setup itself with the car. And that car, yeah, is very sensitive. And we've seen Max, how much he was complaining in Monaco. It's like after the swimming pool, it's just like the car just want to pop, 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 and yeah, everything lost. Just in one bump, literally. So I was like, I think we're in for a good season. I was like, but can anybody catch up? McLaren surprised me in Miami, and they apparently were good. And I was like, this is just one-off. Imola came, I was like, no, this is not a one-off. These guys are generally good, and we are in for a great season. And I remember some of so like the yappers, they were like, oh yeah, you're delusional, you're this and you're that. And I was like, and then when the news about Adrian was leaving, somebody I know who works close with these, with the organization and everything. And I was like, Adrian is gone. And I was like, are you serious? I was like, listen, I'm not the type who wants to post anything, act like, oh, look at me like a source. But to myself, I got the news. You know, I was like, let's wait and see. And a few days, it says Adrian is rumored to be leaving Red Bull. I was like, oh, he's gone.
Yeah.
And he's not leaving. You're delusional because you want Mercedes to come back. And I was like, well, guys, come on. We want competition. I don't care if Mercedes I don't care if Logan Sargent wins the Drivers' Championship. I don't care if Williams or Haas wins the Constructors' Championship.
I would love if Williams won.
The Americans will be insufferable, I'm telling you.
I'm sorry, I really didn't want to say something there.
Are Americans loud? Surely not.
Well, they are loud. The loudest celebration I've seen is how the Celtic fans celebrated their NBA championship in silence. Literally, it was stupid to watch. To be honest,
one thing as well that I think the reason I think that this is setup issues all the time, and we're hitting that ceiling, like Newey said, is if you look at the performance compared to last year, it's not like Red Bull didn't make a huge leap with this car. Like, I mean, they're a second faster at every race than they were last year. It's just that McLaren and Ferrari and now Mercedes are also catching up, which means they've made a huge leap as well. So it's not like Red Bull didn't make huge gains over the winter. It's just
Alpine's qualifying lap time would have been pole position last season.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
And Alpine is shit.
Imagine.
And Alpine is a team that's actually
But
shit.
Newey talked about this, and a couple of the other engineers, and I think we talked about this like literally in 2022. Was I said it? I was like, look, these regulations at the moment, you're always going to get a winner, but they're going to converge very, very quickly because unlike the last ones, these are a lot more prescriptive and a lot more closed off. So the convergence was bound to happen. If I'm honest, I thought 2025, it's happened a year quicker than even I thought it would, which is amazing.
I mean, honestly, I was depressed. At the start of the season, I was a bit depressed because I don't want a repeat of 2023 because, fine, Max is... I mean, that kind of metronomic capabilities is a bane for the sport. He'll put people to sleep
For
with
me,
that
it's
kind of consistency.
It's like Schumacher. It's amazing to see once or twice in your lifetime,
Yeah.
but you don't want to see it repeated.
Yeah.
You don't want. The last time I felt that way was Vettel when he won those 9 races in 2013, because it was a bit like nothing can go wrong, and that was the level at which he completely reached. And the again, I don't think Red Bull is struggling as much as it seems to be. The thing is, this is how Red Bull has been. What worked for them in last season was that they had decent gap to every other team, so they could fiddle around with things, and even
Yeah.
if the car was not in the perfect sweet spot, it still worked. They had a
they
decent
had, like,
margin. It worked.
I think they had at one point it was 3/10 in qualifying and 7/10 in the race. So when you've got
You can average it out.
when you've
For
got
the
a
entire
7/10
season, that's the level.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that's my point. When you've got a 7/10 advantage, you can take the rear suspension off and still win. So you know what I mean? Like it's. I mean, I
That's
don't
the
want
whole
to. I don't
thing.
want to downgrade Max, because obviously Max still did the job, and you know, if you look
Yeah.
at comparison to Perez, for example, you still need the drive. It's like the thing again, because we have a Lewis fan here. You have to say it. Like it's like with Lewis. People say, "Oh, it's just the car." It's like, no, it's the two things. The car is always more important in Formula One because it's Formula
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
But if you have the car and a shit driver, you're still not. You might win, but you're not going to win by a big gap. You know, like it's. So
But this is also a testament to, like, even the same thing in 2020. Like, people are like, oh, anybody could win in W11. Anyone can win the
I
championship
mean,
in
George
W11.
almost did.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, again, George is a talent. And
Yeah.
proved
That's
that
the
he
whole
is,
thing.
you know? And
unlike
so,
Bottas. Sorry, I have to upset Bottas fans at every moment. I have to.
So, I mean, look, for me, I would always rate Bottas higher than Perez, and this is with respect to Perez. I'm not saying it with
that's
disrespect.
not with respect
No,
to
no.
Perez.
In fairness,
It's actually
I
being
did. Hey,
disrespectful
I
to
did a
Perez.
casual. I did a 13-minute, I think it was, video on this, right?
Yeah.
And my conclusion was, as a Perez fan, as you know, is that basically they are more or less equal, because if you take everything together, one of them is much better on a Saturday. Bottas was far better on a Saturday. I think when it comes to racecraft, Perez has the edge, but when it comes
And
to
the rain.
when it comes to consistency, Bottas is better. And then you take the actual car performance, because we know that, you know, the Red Bull, not to make excuses for Perez, it is a bit more difficult to drive. But if you even everything out, they're more or less kind of similar. They are both
I agree.
brilliant number two or midfield drivers, but neither of them are particularly a top tier driver. That's kind of how I see it.
So, that's like the point I was getting at. Like, you need a special type of driver to, even at the lowest, to pick up the pieces for you, you know? And Red Bull at the moment, it's not that they are bad as you mentioned. It's not that they're bad as you mentioned. It's just they got caught up to others,
Yeah.
and it's just because of
that was
that
going to
window.
happen.
Yeah, I mean, they've already been caught, in my opinion, but it's not like it's 100%. Yeah, that's it. They're finished. They're done. The season is long, and they can just come back to where they were and get in their sweet spot and have that 2/10, little bit of a breather, you know, like not to worry too much, and they could come back to that again. And I know 2/10 doesn't sound like much, but
At the moment,
it is for them at the moment. They need it.
First to fourth.
Yeah, at the
That's-
moment, yeah.
It's 2/10.
Yeah.
That is all.
Which
And
is Perez's big problem. Sorry to interrupt really quickly.
Yeah, go.
This is the reason I said earlier in the season they need to replace Perez, because at the moment we've got a 3/10 gap from first to seventh in qualifying, and Perez has consistently in qualifying been 3 to 4 tenths off Max. So that puts him out of the top 7 at every weekend going forward.
Perez this
Precisely.
season overall is 7/10 off Max.
Yeah.
7/10. That's
Yeah.
like the gap between Max and Logan Sargent in
He
casual
needs
races.
to be replaced. I'm not
I'm
defending
not,
Perez
look,
here.
The thing is about Perez, and I know a lot of Perez fans insulted me, some of them even racially, and
Oh
I don't
yeah.
care, to be honest.
By the way, even I was apparently 100 Mexicans retweeted what I not retweeted, requoted whatever I had said. I said that Perez should be replaced. That was the only point. 100 retweets, and they wrote everything in Mexican. Like, fuck it, I'm not going to
Spanish.
one of them.
Spanish, you're racist.
Spanish. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Guys, I've had 2 hours of sleep.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
So
Oh, God,
again, so I understand that Mexican fans are happy because as a national, you want somebody representing you, and you have now a driver representing you at a highest tier.
Yeah.
And with a championship winning team. This is not any team.
Yeah.
This is a championship winning team who had drivers such as David Coulthard, as Mark Webber, Sebastian Vettel,
Scott
Max
Speed.
Verstappen,
Oh, no,
Daniel
that was the
Ricciardo,
second too. Sorry.
Daniel Ricciardo. So, and now Perez is in that mix, and Perez also was one of the reasons why Max managed to get that title in 2021, and for all the things he's done to be the team player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Perez, I think the best version of Perez with Red Bull is 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people like, oh, why he hasn't won many races. Like, look at 2022, 2023, he won more races. No, it's not about winning races, about the
I mean, not
quality
too
and
many.
consistency.
Not too many. He won 1 race in 2021, 2 in 2022.
Yeah,
exactly.
but
That's what
he wasn't there to win races is the point.
So
Yeah.
people, they compare
That's
it
true.
basically with the podiums and winning races and stuff like that. So that's what people now these days, like it reminds me of the Jose Mourinho quote, like, if you don't understand football, people who don't understand football look at stats. So some people, I don't mean they don't understand F1, but when they don't understand what they're looking at, they just look at the stats. No, the quality that Perez brought in 2021, because he was obviously fired up, it's a chance for him to be with the top tier because he was out of F1 in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And that was unfair.
Yeah.
That was unfair. Him being out in 2020, that was unfair. We cannot disagree.
Him being out right now will be unfair as well, just to put it. He should not.
He shouldn't be out of
the
F1, but I don't think he should be in that
he shouldn't
seat.
be out of F1, but he should, exactly. That's
He
the
should
thing.
not be in Red Bull.
And so now you have like drivers like, look, I'm not even a Red Bull fan. Like, you have drivers like Hadjar, who's doing brilliant in F2. That kid needs to be promoted to F1 sooner or later. Liam Lawson, bro, is like, if you have to meet him, he knows
Casual
Duster with you.
loves Liam Lawson.
I like
He's
Liam
going to
Lawson.
Audi, by the way, apparently.
So better for him, if you ask me. Like, if you have a Duster, you can puff the dust off the guy. That's how much he's been on the sideline. Yuki, at this point, they're just using him as the, the standard or the bar to compare to another driver. Like, what does that kid has to do now to be? I'm not saying he's worthy 100%.
He deserves a
Red
shot.
Bull, but he is consistent now.
Yeah.
In 2020, he admitted that he's shit. He wasn't good. Like, with his own, because he's like, I don't see I am deserving of renewal, but I will prove myself. 2022, the car was bad anyway. In 2023, he was showing why he deserves to be in F1. 2024, he's showing again that he is a good driver. He's not some just, because Honda or not Honda or all of that stuff. He is there because of Honda, but he proved that he deserves to be on the grid. So I think Perez is at a stage where he should be looking at that Alpine, Haas, Williams seat. And I'm not saying as a bad thing, like, you have experience. Your experience can help. Can help. Maybe you're not consistent. Maybe you have pressure here and there, but now it's time for you to look at alternatives.
Yeah.
And other teams could
I think
use
from
that
Checo's
sponsors.
perspective, I can understand that. But I think from Checo's perspective, I can completely understand him wanting to stay at Red Bull. Because why the fuck would he leave?
You've got to, like,
the kind of money that he's getting, he's top 5 in terms of the contracts in Formula 1 right now. It's Max, Lewis, I think Charles, and I don't know, there's one more guy, and then there's Checo.
He's also got all that Carlos Slim money, so he's just...
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah,
and the thing is, he's earning a lot. For him, and I think he made it quite clear, he said that he wants to end his career at Red Bull. The whole point behind Checo, I think I'm starting to understand why Christian has actually signed him. Again, it's a two-year deal or 1+1, whatever you want to call it.
You want to know why he signed him? There's
not that stupid thing of selling these many cans of
no
Red Bull in Mexico.
No, I'll tell you why he
That's
signed
not
him.
the whole thing.
Because because of an Austrian man that he doesn't like at the minute that he's punishing.
I don't think that's the case either.
I think
right now
he's stuck with Helmut Marko. So until Helmut Marko leaves, no Helmut Marko juniors are getting promoted. And I told you, Horner will burn that place down.
But who will you replace with him? I mean, what happened with Sergio was Horner had a situation where he has to fix the future. There's no one else that he can actually put in that particular car. He won't put Carlos, especially after the shit he pulled this week. He will not put a Daniel Ricciardo who has not shown anything. Yuki is a Honda product. He will not put it. And honestly, Yuki has been good. I don't think he's Red Bull worthy. I don't think he's worthy of a works team.
Ahmed,
that's just my opinion.
And listen, this is just my opinion. This is just me chatting nonsense. I still think Perez is in that seat. It's because of Horner wants to do it in spite of everyone in that administration, or in spite of Helmut and everyone. And I think we've heard the comments of Max before, like if Helmut leaves, then I
will leave.
And I don't think.
And do you think it's
for
smart
1 second,
for him
and we've
to stay?
Yeah, and we've seen Mercedes boss.
Improve.
When I say boss, the boss.
Yeah.
The boss who was in Barcelona this weekend said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go after Max." And I don't see they wouldn't have a problem going after Helmut first before going to Max.
And we know Austrians love Germany, so that's true.
There you go. So I know the reference. So I'm not going to comment on it, but
let's quickly march away from that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm saying
peacefully
is, I still think that, and I think we've heard this almost halfway through last season, if we go back to all the comments and everything. And look, I know there are a lot of fans in F1 community who are like, oh, you guys like the drama, or you guys like to listen to the clickbait articles. But some articles may not be necessarily clickbait.
Yeah.
Some articles could be just saying exactly how things are going on. Like me personally, when I was there and I saw my eyes and I stood there on the sideline just watching, I can feel there's a tension inside that hospitality. And how would I tell that there's tension? Everyone's moving fast inside that hospitality, and there is 7-8 cameras fixated on them only. So there's something. Then you see. So exactly. So there are journalists who just stand there on the side, just like me, and assess the situation, and and just take gossips a little bit from here and there, here and there, and from there make the picture all together. So
I know
from last
3 of
season,
them.
we've heard
one of them is with the Telegraph. One is.
Do you have him on
Ralph
WhatsApp?
Bach does not even go to the paddock, and the third one is. I'd rather not name him.
Yeah,
exactly.
I've got friends who are basically from the Wheel Sports channel. Like there was loads of people who constantly were like, "How did you know that before this happened, or that before like it came out here?" My thing is, I have friends in various teams in the UK.
You know what happens when you're Indian? You know Indians in different places.
Yeah. See,
and usually Indians are in
I'm an
places.
Irish guy, right? And a lot of Irish people go to England for work. So I know lots of friends who work as engineers in like Red Bull, Mercedes, all these different teams. Yeah. And as soon as something comes out, I'm like, hey, listen, what's going on there? And usually those employees, they might not be on the pulse, but they kind of hear things or they sense the vibe in the factory, and they're like, yeah, listen. And as soon as the Horner thing happened, it was like he's basically grasping MK fully, and it's kind of him versus
they love
them.
him as well.
They love him there, but he said it was like very much.
They love that guy.
They are obsessed.
They hate Marco.
Yeah, exactly. So it became very much, from what I was told, like a us in MK versus Austria type thing. So this is why I constantly get this feeling that Helmut Marko is kind of like, we're stuck with him, but we're not going to let him have anything, that way. So
yeah,
that's what makes sense to me as to why Lawson hasn't got a seat, Yuki's not getting promoted. These are all Helmut Marko's guys.
a power struggle.
Exactly.
A power struggle. And
but
you can tell that, and you can tell that when I think I've read something that during the investigation days, like
Oh
the
God, I hate
Austrian.
those guys.
No.
Do you want to see some finger pics? No.
No, like you can see that there's a huge power struggle, and specifically when you see that the Austrian office is demanding to be an open investigation for everyone to see, and basically what you're trying to do is make this man exposed wide open to the world to see everything. And then you have the Thailand side back in Horner.
Yeah.
Now, you can kind of tell inside that team, inside that garage, who was on the Austrian side and wanted to be on that neck of the wood, and who was on the Thailand side, which is one-man army, Horner himself. So from there, you can tell there was a power struggle. And just a month later, the rumors about Adrian wanted to leave, not because he cared about Austrian side, or he just wanted like basically I'm not at that. Yeah, it's like I'm not at this age to be dealing with this.
If I remember correctly, it was the alleged person was Nui's assistant before it was Horner's assistant.
Both had the same PA.
Yeah, so I think it was Nui kind of just not feeling comfortable with that. Which is that's who Nui is. He's a very kind of relaxed and casual guy who's
doesn't
just
want to get into all that.
This isn't for
one
him.
of the biggest reasons
He's
why
an engineer.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest reasons why he didn't really go to Ferrari all these years was this. He didn't want to get into the politics.
Ferrari being Ferrari, yeah.
Yeah. And even whatever I've heard, Nui is still cool with Horner and stuff because apparently their families are close. It's just that he did not want to be in that environment.
Yeah.
And in the spotlight kind of environment.
Precisely. And it was very toxic. I mean, it became toxic because they made it toxic. So
well, I just remember I said to you the first thing when it started off, I said, look, I know from what I've heard, what it's like in MK and what Horner's like over the years. I just knew it was going to be a situation of Horner's got the factory behind him and he's got the Thai side behind him. So either he stays or he burns that place to the fucking ground on the way out the door.
Yeah, 100%.
And part of me at the time, because this was weird thinking that Red Bull was going to dominate, part of me was like, I kind of hope he burns it because it'll make the because like I'm a Perez fan, and I because of Vettel I was a bit of a Red Bull fan, but you know me, I'm not really a big fan of any one driver or team. I just want competition.
One shouldn't be.
So.
One shouldn't be. It makes the sport
I think
boring,
everyone
honestly.
is at the start. This is the weird thing. I think everyone has a favorite driver when they start watching F1. That driver eventually fades or leaves, and then you kind of just become this kind of casual fan of everything, I think. You know,
exactly.
Like I remember, and this is a crazy story. So I was sitting with a guy, and we were talking about motorsport in general. I was like, man, it's kind of boring for me, like fans who just focus on F1. Like, there's other motorsport series.
No, there's not.
So so we were talking like about. I was like, oh yeah. So I brought up WEC, and I was like, oh, look at WEC. They have Ferrari now, and they have Lamborghini just joined in, you know. So there are some bit. I was like, oh, Aston Martin Valkyrie is like, oh. I was like, by the way, about the Valkyrie. It's like, guess who I met? And I was like, who you met? He was like, Adrian Newey. And I was like, oh, really? So the story, it just got crazier from there, because apparently he was with his friend going to meet Adrian Newey because his friend purchased a Valkyrie. And I'm like, oh, I see. We're talking here. That's a whole different league here. And obviously Adrian was there. And he basically takes those cars as his babies. He didn't deliver it to him yet, like he's not received it, but he went to see the car first.
Yeah.
And so he's like Adrian's like the kind of guy who sees those cars like his little kids, you know, like he's giving you his kid. Like he has to know first of all, like, who are you? And he's like, and most of the questions, like, first of all, very nice man. And most of the questions there was just like, you know, asking the guy, asking his friends like about racing background and all that stuff, like not as if he was a racer, but like, oh, you watch motorsports and everything. And the guy was like a big F1 geek, like he loves Ferrari and all that, but like he was obsessed like ever since he saw the Valkyrie, and was like, oh, I can afford this, I'm buying it. So I was like, well, I hope I have that problem one day too. Because to think about it. So from what I've heard about the man, is just like he is super, super, super down to earth to the point you, but like, you know that he's down to earth from what you hear from the media, but like it's like, no, it's way more than what you even think. Like you could be humble too, and you stand next to him, you feel like an asshole because that's how humble he is. So yeah,
He seems
I
like an
feel
old school engineer. Just really kind of, he doesn't really care about anything else. He just loves the engineering. Doesn't want to be bothered with any of the politics. He's just like, I just want to build the best thing.
There aren't that many people who are able to succeed in this manner.
No.
I mean, you can just count them on fingers. There are 4 or 5 ace designers that have actually stood stood the whole test of time. That things need to be actually in place. Just look at.
This is a perfect segue, isn't it, to talk about one other thing?
I was thinking about it.
Because Dan Fallows apparently is being not ousted, but being kind of undermined with Cardile going from Ferrari to Aston. Newey is talking to Aston.
I was about to get to. Yeah. So apparently, Aston Martin, it's taking over. It might. Okay. By the way, for a Lewis Hamilton fan, it's not a good news. By the way, apparently Enrico Cardile is moving from Ferrari to Aston Martin, and he was the technical director, and he'd been there for, I think, a long time, and he has been attributed with the kind of success and the kind of turnaround that has been there with the Ferrari. I mean, on one side, I want to see Fernando Alonso finally be in a competitive car. On the other side, I mean, seriously, just half a season he had.
I want him to win the 2026 championship and then retire, just to end on a high.
No, what I want him to do is, I want him to win from 2026 till 2030.
No.
And have 7 world titles, and then he'll rub it.
No, if Alonso wins another title and Hülkenberg gets a podium, that's end credits for me. I'm stopping watching F1 because it can't get better than that. So
yeah, it really can't. To be honest, it can't. But yeah, I mean, it's strange. Where do you think Aston Martin goes from here? Because they've talked the big game, but ideally by 2024 they should have got their pieces in place, and now it would have been the time for them to shuffle things around and just find the optimum structure. It's not happening yet. They're still scouring for. Apparently Dan Fallows has been proven to be a failure, which I have huge doubts. I think there's some issue with the wind tunnel. You cannot have these many concerns.
I wouldn't call him a failure.
Neither would I.
Ideally, because I
think you're
2
racist
years,
against British
every
people.
upgrade. I think I have a right to be.
That's true. We both do. We're from the former colonies.
Yeah, I have a right to be. So if I am,
I'm like Adrian Newey, just standing on the sideline.
While the Irish and Indian guy are like, fuck Britain.
Oh god.
Oh. So,
but yeah, I mean, for me the worry has been it's a pattern. 2024, 2023, 2024. Both times the car started at a decent benchmark, but every time there's an upgrade, it always regresses.
Yeah,
and is it a correlation issue?
I have my thoughts on this, but Ahmed, jump in because you seem like you've got an opinion. I like it.
I think the problem with Aston Martin is not just the facility is new, and sometimes, like, even the world of construction, like in aviation, for example. I'm in the aviation industry, but I'm part of it, and like even when they build new planes, for example, they just build it and take it for a spin in the sky and be like, yeah, right off, deliver it. It goes through like thousands of hours of testing before it gets approved.
Boeing does not do that.
I mean, listen, they're turn up to the max. So I mean, the thing is, like,
sorry.
Oh my god,
sorry.
That's actually
that's really bad.
That's the most Irish thing I've ever heard. So like. And then you see, like, for example, even when you build a new building itself, like I'm talking as, let's say, a skyscraper, for example, burdened at first, it doesn't mean it's 100% good because it's standing there. Once people start using it and people start using the lights, the freaking lavatory, anything, water going through the pipes, then you're going to start seeing the flaws when the building is on full capacity. That's when the flaws start to show up. Their new factory, it is phenomenal, but they are now just trying to discover, now that they are discovering the flaws on everything they build around, their systems, everything. I wouldn't
Second
call.
driver.
I mean, that team always had a driver and a half, in my opinion. That's always what I said.
Nice of you to say half.
And I mean, well, if I say one, it's going to be like it's just too much. But
He
yeah,
means Alonso is 1.25. So
Oh, right. Okay.
okay, you know what? Call it that.
Yeah.
So the problem for me with Aston Martin is they need another driver. There's no way to look about it. And if you're trying to convince Adrian Newey, and again, I've spoke with people here, and some people heard was like, oh yeah, they are in talks with consistent talks with Adrian Newey. Was like, he would not come if he knows that Lance Stroll is one of those cars, or Lance Stroll is the project around him. He's not gonna give a fuck, because it's like giving the giraffe a supercar to drive. It's not gonna work no matter what you give her or how you build that car around that giraffe. The giraffe is not built to drive that car. So that man he made it to F1, sure.
we were being kinder to Lance, to be honest.
No, you took couple of podiums. Good for you, but you only did all that because you were allowed to stay in the sport that long because of daddy's cash. Straight up to the point. And when I was on, and I have a problem with Lance, by the way, to tell you, because he's an asshole in person, and I mean it with sincere respect, because I've never seen a more condescending, selfish, main character syndrome guy as I've seen that man. You can tell me whatever you want to say, and you can call me hater, but that's exactly
I've
my
never met
experience
him,
with
but
him.
this is
I'll
kind
say,
of my opinion of him anyway. It's kind of how I felt he would be.
No, like I met the guy, and that's what I felt exactly. And I am no disrespectful to any person when I meet these
I'm
people.
clipping this bit out and
No, you're
putting
not.
it
Do
in the
with
shop.
it. I
Oh,
don't
right.
care. Do with it whatever.
I was
going to
say we're not editing this out. I love some Lance bash.
So again, when I criticize a driver, I criticize him for his driving or something like that. Him as a person, I have no right to comment on that because I don't live with these people. I don't see them. If I see them, maybe as a first impression. And my first impression with Lance was that I was shitting on Max in 2021. And when I met the guy, he's one of the sweetest guys I've met in person. Lewis, obviously, I could not get the chance to do that with him because his bodyguard was so nice and respectful. And he told me, listen, if Lewis comes out, you can run after him, chase him, and keep calling him, but I'm going to keep pushing you to the side. I'm just doing my job. If Lewis stops and say, let him, he's all yours.
Yeah.
Do that. That's all what the fans do if they want to grab it. I was like, okay, I'll try that. So I was like, thank you for giving me the heads up. It's like, I'm going to look like, oh yeah, I'm being aggressive with you, but I'm just trying to do my job.
Yeah, which is fair.
So overall, most of these drivers, when you meet them in person, you get a different impression. And I think Lance is probably one of the drivers that 70% of the fan base will have the same impression about him as a person that they would have with him when they meet him for the first time. And I'm sure Adrian Newey wants to deal with none of that. And he does not want to sit with a guy who's delulu, who goes up in interviews and be like, well, the FIA did this so they can prevent paid drivers from entering F1 and get people who deserves to be in F1. Like, bro, you're not supposed to be in that interview.
I feel like
Let Ocon, let Lewis do that interview, not you. So yeah, something about him. I'm not gonna say he's not an acceptable person, but he's just, you're not that guy. Go to work, bro. Like,
I feel like Lance and COVID have made me question the stereotypes around Canadians being very peaceful and quiet people.
They are. I
love
there
Canadians.
For 4 years.
Yeah.
I lived there for 4 years of my
They're
life.
genuinely
They are
such nice people. Like, just so
he
nice.
is. I don't want to say that
half of
because
them
I
are
know
Indian,
how,
so I mean,
I don't want to say that because I know people be like, oh, you're being racist here or something, but I'm not. But the man technically is a Russian.
Strulovich. Yeah.
So,
And
I'm not
it's-
saying
hey, listen.
Russians are bad people, but he has that
you
cold
just
blood
did.
in him.
So-
No, I'm not because I have
Yeah.
Russian friends,
Yeah.
so I know how they are.
Plus,
Yeah.
Russian people if you know Russian people, you'll know that they're very good at being insulted. They just don't give a shit. So it's fine.
Exactly.
Russian people as well, I know this is off topic, but they are literally the most honest people in the world. I love that culture. Like, if you show up and you're a little bit overweight, they're like, hey, you got fat. You're just like, oh, thanks. I love it. Like, they're just so blunt. But yeah, if I can quickly jump in about Aston Martin, my thinking is... I think there's clearly some sort of issue between the simulator CFD and what they're seeing on track at the moment. That's what I'm getting from just everything. And over the last season, we've seen that with their upgrades. And the reason I think that they're actually just working on fixing that, and that's their key focus at the moment, is because Alonso normally has 1 or 2 bad races every year. He's just been shit for the last 4 or 5 races now. And I know, as a fan who's watched Alonso since 2004, because that's when I really got into F1, that's not what Alonso does even now. So I think what they're doing is Stroll is being a useless donkey in the corner, so they're just letting him do what he wants. And in the interim, the engineers are saying, look, this is what we're seeing on the simulator. This is what's happening on track. Can you really just push everything to the limit, try everything so that we can figure out where these issues are? And I think they're giving him all of the shit to deal with at the minute, which kind of makes sense. They do this with drivers in various teams. You know, famously, there was the experimental setups in 2022, which I made fun of a lot with Lewis and then George later on and so on. But they do this in teams. When things are going wrong, they give the more experienced driver the shit and say, look, just figure this out. Yeah. So I think that's what they're doing.
I just feel it's not Dan Fellows who's actually at fault.
No.
I think there's a bigger issue, and that comes from...
Okay.
If a championship winning team like Mercedes get a problem like that, then I think Aston Martin should be cut the slack.
Both use the same wind tunnel as well.
There you go. So that explains it all, basically. And you have for some reason, Mercedes found the formula for how to fix that issue. Maybe Aston haven't yet.
I think there's Aston are just going to seem more like they're going to have bigger issues because obviously Mercedes had similar issues. I'm not saying it's down to the wind tunnel because we don't know that 100%, but it is interesting that both teams had correlation issues.
There is some correlation issues for sure because no team, and someone who's worked for almost a decade at Red Bull, he cannot be this dumb that every time he brings an update to a car.
But Dan Fellows used to use a wind tunnel that was literally built in World War One, I believe, or World War Two.
World War Two.
So
look, something like that.
I don't think it's Dan Fellows. I just think that the time frame for a team to turn around, from where they were to what they're trying to do, building new facilities, building a new wind tunnel, completely building up, planning for an engine partner. I think that they got to the stage where last year the downgrades started to happen. They have a similar thing this year, and I reckon they're probably doing something similar to what I think Andrea Stella is doing. Not Andrea Stella, sorry, Seidel is doing.
Seidel.
I think they're kind of saying, right, look, we are where we are. Let's just use this to our best advantage. Let's just try and get rid of all these issues this season, because next season we need to kind of stress test things to prepare for the actual season where we're going to be pushing, which is 2026. Dan Fellows, I think the problem he's going to face is that Lawrence Stroll is, throughout his business career, and I'm not talking F1, very impatient. But
that's the whole problem.
And Lawrence Stroll always wants to win, which is why I still believe in the Aston project, because I think Lawrence Stroll, being Lawrence Stroll, will think either my son wins or my team wins, and I don't care which. So even if Lance Stroll is shit, I think he'll still continue with the Aston project because he has to win regardless. So my problem at the moment is I think Dan Fellows hasn't won races in the last 2 years. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
You mentioned a good point about Lance Stroll and his son and the team.
Lawrence Stroll.
Haven't you noticed? Lawrence, And I'm going to let you continue your point, but just keep this in mind. The news circulating about when is Lance's contract going to be announced, and I think there is a little bit of our proper board talking here about, right, listen, Lance Habibi, we brought you the Aramco oil money here, but let's get real, huh? I know you love your son, and you've done all this for your son, and I don't think there's any Father of the Year anyone should win the Father of the Year award for every year. It should be you, because you spend a shitload amount of money for your son.
Yeah.
But time to talk a little bit And I think maybe Lance is in F1 for one more season. After that, he's gone. Continue.
I think that's why they're building the WEC project.
I mean, that's what he's praying for. I mean, that's what everyone is praying for.
I genuinely think,
I think
yeah.
they join. They're joining WEC
2025, yeah.
2025.
I've been saying a while, I
so
think this is like the parachute for
fingers crossed.
Lance. Is kind of, look, let him kind of string out this season. If he doesn't do something really good, then, which he won't, let's just parachute him into WEC for, and you can promise him, look, I tell you what, if the car in 2026 is brilliant and we can win a title even with a special needs kid in the second car, then you can definitely come back. But until that point, we're going to get someone who's not you into the car. So I think that might have been offensive to everybody there, but I think it got the point across. Look, I think the Aston project is kind of like the Audi project in that they tried to kind of make that leap in the same way that McLaren and Ferrari have, but I think they've hit the point of McLaren and Ferrari have been building towards this for a long time, and we still have a lot of stuff to do. So I think they're kind of stress testing stuff now. That's the only reason I can see Alonso just having these consistently bad weekends.
By the way, Alonso, for the first time in a long time, again, he was very depressed. But he said one thing, that for the last year and a half, every time we brought something, we had no clue how it was going to work. Now, for the first time, there is hope that something positive is going to come. It's going to come in Hungary. That's the timeline that he's told. So fingers crossed, maybe something works out. Because, look, one of the basic things that you have to do in Formula 1 to be successful is invest a shit ton of money. Now that Lawrence has done.
Yeah.
That's what Renault didn't do, and that's why it's in a shithole and has to go back to Flavio.
Maybe that was the plan, to save money by having his son drive the car for a couple of years so they could invest in development.
Again, by the way, this is something I was going to come to. Apparently, now since there are 3 people that are actually exempt from the cost cap, right? His son will not be one of them.
But the drivers aren't excluded, or the drivers are excluded anyway.
Oh, the drivers, no. And listen, can I be?
There are-
No, it's
I'm not sure drivers
it's
aren't.
three.
It's top
no,
3
it's
employees.
top 3 plus the drivers. The drivers aren't included in the cap at all.
Oh yeah.
So it
Yeah.
doesn't-
Okay. So someone
yeah,
raised the wrong
yeah.
point. Huh. So
The
apparently,
drivers are never
those top 3.
included,
No,
so
no.
He can pay him 300 million, and
He can give him. He can give
Yeah,
him a
so-
team if he wants.
Lewis is getting paid 100 million the next season. That's literally. Ferrari will have only 40 million left in the budget cap. What are they gonna do with
Yeah,
it? If they're
No,
included?
drivers
So,
are excluded
Yeah.
in the top 3.
Drivers are excluded. So the thing that was actually put forward was that the kind of money that Enrico Cardil was offered, it was nuts. Like there's no technical director on the entire grid that is actually getting that kind of money, and only Newey was at 10 to 12 million. So that is the only one that was an exception.
Can I ask
to
you
all
a
of
really
this.
quick question? I say really quick because we have got stuff to cover, and we're already an hour in because Ahmed has some.
It's become a Red Bull podcast.
It has
honestly.
become a great podcast where you've just got 3 proper F1 fans talking shit. I love this.
Yeah.
But no, question I have is, as soon as I saw the Cardile news, right, do you think that confirms the Newey news? Because I have a feeling that Cardile maybe would. The thing that came to my head is, if Newey's coming in, do you think to yourself, no, fuck this, I don't want to do all the work and not get any of the credit? So do you think maybe Cardile is thinking of going somewhere else because of that? Or do you think I'm just complete? Because, by the way, I only thought this when you sent me the message before the podcast, so this is a completely just off the top of my head thought, but yeah.
Again, whatever I've read, I'm not sure if that is happening. I mean, the problem is Newey has been shopping around a bit too much. He's basically talked to everyone. He started having a fling with Ferrari. Then he has been basically 2-timing, 3-timing, and he's pretty much
I love the picture of Newey just having a cigarette in bed beside an SF23 car, just like, was that good for you?
Yeah. And that's what he's been doing. I think he's talked from Haas to Mercedes to Ferrari to everyone. And I think what he'll do,
Haas. Don't be silly.
We never
We
know.
do know. Alpine and Haas he hasn't
Maybe,
talked to.
listen.
Alpine he has.
What, did he
Flavio
just
had a
walk in
meeting
to
with-
laugh at the factory and just go, thanks for that, guys, and then just walk out?
I don't think Adrian would ever want to work with the Renault engine after the nightmares he experienced in 2018.
Yeah.
I don't think
Maybe
he
that's
ever
why they're
wants
dropping the
to do
Renault
anything
engine.
with that.
Maybe that's why
By
they're
the
dropping
way.
the.
Yeah.
Or no. I think the only reason they're dropping it is the amount of tea cups Flavio Briatore had with Toto in Monaco. Like, there's a video of them every week together in a coffee shop
Yeah.
drinking it. And one time, even Alonso joined the conversation. I don't know what he was doing there. So, yeah, I think he was trying to. He was hoping to jump on that Mercedes seat, but then
Yeah,
he was
that
like,
didn't
"Nah, man,
happen.
I have a good bag here with the. I have a good
Team
bag with
Williams.
Aston Martin, I
Apparently, as
cannot
well,
let
he
that
got a
go."
good deal on an island, so they're doing the Epstein Island GP next year. That's why Flavio's back.
Yeah, we might have that. Anyway, by the way,
Oh my
moving
God.
on from all this, let's
for the
talk
young
about
fans.
Ferrari. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Good.
I mean, they'll get to it. They'll get.
This
First
is
we
why
talked
I'm not
about
allowed
that
on
scene.
radio
What's
anymore.
left?
Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on from all this, Ferrari. What a shit weekend, by the way. Okay, a couple of things. Let's start with the first part, which is my takeaway from the entire weekend was this was the Ferrari of old, like the Ferrari that Binotto had, that to an extent Maurizio Arrivabene had, because this is a Ferrari that is fast tracking upgrades, that has no control over its drivers, and honestly had somewhat substandard strategy. This was not the kind of Ferrari that we've seen under Fred. And alarm bells started ringing, and then you had the Enrico Cardil news that the guy that is actually responsible for this car and he's leaving. What do you make of the entire thing? Because earlier I thought 2025 it was going to be a title battle between Max, Charles, and Lewis. Now I'm starting to backtrack a bit from that part. Ahmed?
First of all, I think there's one thing, and we all know about that. Lewis needs to get his qualifying mojo back, because he's gonna go up against probably
Best
the best
qualifier.
qualifier on the
Yeah.
grid.
Yeah.
And as we've seen with these cars and how close the grid now is, overtaking is not just an easy breeze pass and you're good to go. You're gonna struggle at least a lap or two. But if there's one thing I've seen with Lewis, and he've done it in Spain, I was like, okay, this man knows how to protect his tires, even though he's like, I'd rather lose 7/10 in making this overtake than just losing 2 seconds like what Norris did, going wheel to wheel in multiple corners. Like, you can see Lewis could have took Ferraris in any corner he wanted, but no, he wanted to do it with the DRS, with the straights, and get it done and move to the next stop.
You can't buy that experience.
That could not, yeah. But
Well,
that
Ferrari
might
did,
not be the
actually.
case
Never
next
mind.
season.
Sorry.
So that might not happen next season. What if Mercedes is strong next season? What if McLarens are much stronger and Red Bull's still the team to beat, and you're gonna drop behind them? And what if even Aston Martin comes back into being a nuisance headache to all the other top teams?
What
So,
if Alpine does that? Sorry.
Stop smoking
yeah, with
weed.
that engine, man. So yeah, the one thing I would say is that Lewis he said it himself. Like, it's not me commenting. He knows he needs his qualifying back, because qualifying now matters more than anything with these rigs. And it's just sad to see that this rigs, they're gonna be over soon, and they're gonna be over in a time when these cars actually got fast. Like, when you see 2022 testing, and you see how slow those cars looks around the corners, they look like a boat trying to turn. And you see them now, like, you can see the amount of pressure on that front tire when they're just under brake and turning right away. And you're like, the difference is crazy when you just try to spot it between 22 and now. So yeah, he's not getting younger as well, but that doesn't mean he's getting slow. We've seen even with Alonso, the guy is like 40 plus, and there's no way to tell me this guy lost his touch. All I know is that car is shit. And last season, the start of last season was the example that man still has the speed to be on the podium even when races. And Lewis is the same thing. It's the only problem I think with him now is that things are not well between him and Mercedes. Not like, oh, they are in a bad term. No. It's just like, now you don't have that access of information to work and improve and do this and do that. And because obviously, as a Mercedes, they need to protect their info. They need to protect everything they have.
It's standard, yeah.
He's going to their competitors. They're not gonna just sit there and watch him give all the info to Ferrari. Oh yeah, by the way, Mercedes, we used to do this and do that. It's the normal. It's the normal. I know that I get that a lot of Lewis fans are mad. Oh yeah, George this, George that. The one thing I would say, whoever sent that stupid email, it might actually help to level things out. But I'm not saying it as a good thing. Whoever did, it's not a good thing what they did. But it was just funny. And I remember seeing somebody said, it's funny, since they sent the email, Lewis all of a sudden is performing well. But I think one of the reasons why he did, because Spain is one of his strongest tracks. Just like when he goes to Hungary, you know he's going to cook something special. Like there are certain tracks, you know, when Lewis is there.
Canada.
Yeah.
Canada, for example, you know he's just going to do good. And I predicted him in Canada to be on the podium. If he wasn't on the hards, I know that podium would have been in the pocket. And so, yeah, in general, I think he needs to get it together. Now, is he going to Ferrari to win a championship? I think he probably betting his money on Adrian Gioni and Ferrari.
I think he's thinking about 2026, right? For that, obviously.
Yeah. But then 2026, do we even know who's going to have the better engine? That's the thing. Some saying already in the paddock, Mercedes already got that locked in. It could be just bollocks.
That's not true. That's basically Mercedes trying. That's Mercedes sending out the feelers because they want to lure Max in.
No. It's not about luring Max was true, not true. I'm saying could be true, and it could be just all bollocks. Not nothing real. It could be Ferrari who have the better engine, and it could be not, and it could be all of a sudden Ford, who's everyone saying, "Oh, things are not looking good."
We know it won't be Renault.
We're going to be another.
We can be sure it won't be Renault.
Well, Renault looks like they're already out of.
That's
F1
why we're sure.
As a team and as an engine
we would have been sure either ways.
Could be Audi.
Yeah.
Could be Audi. So there's a lot of varieties to even think about. When it comes to aerodynamic efficiency, I think he's betting his money on entirely on Adrian Newey joining that team. And I think that's what he wants. And I think there's a lot of already engineers that left Mercedes and joined Ferrari, like Costa and who else?
Well, Sanchez left and then got fired or left again from another team. I'm trying to think who's moved to Ferrari. They've hired a good people.
I think Costa.
Suara went. I can't remember his name.
Sierra.
Yeah.
Loic Serra. Loic Serra will be taking over from Enrico Gardi.
So there are some names, but then again, having big names that not guarantee you winning championships. And a lot of people like, oh yeah, once Adrian is there, we're gonna cook. We're gonna win the 8th title.
That's the dumbest thing anyone can say. I mean,
no. Let's say Adrian just join in and actually cook up something special, and the car is actually dominant. Don't take Charles out of the equation. That's the thing I'm saying. And Charles is not Charles, who's been in that team for that long. I know he's not gonna sit there and be buddy Habibi. He's just gonna be biting everything. I know Lewis will be doing the same, but again, you are not in your territory, Lewis. You're joining someone else's territory. And that's where the difference is.
One question, by the way, regarding the entire thing. Is Charles too nice to be a world champion?
I don't believe in that crap, because people said the same thing about Max. Oh, yeah, he's so silly. Huh? What is this bullshit?
Max?
Oh, yeah, people said something.
They said about
similar
his
Max.
it was about his sim racing and
I'll
like
tell
other
you,
things like that.
No. I'll tell you something why I raised this question, because ideally the kind of move that Sainz has pulled and the way Sainz has tried to punch above his weight, if it was Max, if it was Alonso, even Vettel did that with Weber, they would have stamped their foot and said, he's the second driver, he's not going to screw with my race. Charles kind of let it go. I think we're past that generation.
I think the thing is though, casual.
Still aren't. I mean, look.
No. I think
Max
we're past
did that. Just look at last season.
I think we're past it. No, I think we're past it into drivers on the radios and teams into radios discussing that for the world to hear. Because at the end of this, F1 who picks and put whatever radios they want to.
That's
what
fine,
I'm trying to say is, I know these discussions are they have these discussions behind door, and I think one of the TCAMs of I don't know if it's T-cam of the Ferrari or which car that picked up.
It was
Charles.
Lando's car, and it showed both of them being very animated, and they even exchanged comments in the media where
Yeah, so yeah, then
Yeah.
that's the so again, as I said, now drivers they try to reserve making talking about teams
no,
specifics.
that's not my concern. My point has entirely been
Charles
that
Charles is a little bit like George in a sense of PR training. I'm not saying as a driver.
he
I'm
doesn't
saying
have
as a
that.
no. I'll tell you, George is the most PR driver on the grid.
That is
Like,
true. He
That
is.
guy.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
very. Yeah.
That's true.
You can't tell me
Good old
otherwise.
Woody.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's
I know
true.
you can tell me Lewis, but Lewis can crack jokes here and there and say some BS here and there. George, no, it's always like, I'm so happy with this weekend and we're doing great and we're gonna win the election. That's how exactly how it sounds. Like he just
crikey,
means
gosh.
George is basically from the Toto Wolff school of PR, and it
exactly.
shows.
And Charles, in my opinion, he is just a little bit PR trained in terms of not to say anything right on the radio and right on the spot. Like there are moments where you can see Charles snapping, like the radio in France, no, the dramatic radio, and then you have the one when he was calling himself an shit idiot in Turkey.
Stupid.
And he was going crazy about it after he lost the podium in 2020. So he has moments, but he knows how to reserve everything and wait until the media panel and they tell him, okay, you can speak about this and this and this and this, and yeah, you can leave some stuff out.
Can I?
No,
In terms of being nice, I don't think that's true because the beginning of 2020 to show that guy can win a championship until
that
Ferrari
guy
started
can win.
pooping out, having
I agree
shit
with you.
reliability and shit upgrades. That's when it showed that, yeah.
Why I'm asking this question is, I think we can safely say that Red Bull is a Max Verstappen team. We can safely say that Mercedes till George came in was
Lewis team.
a Lewis
Now
Hamilton
it's a
team.
George team or will be.
Aston, yeah,
Or
Yeah,
a Kimi
and Aston
Antonelli
has
or
it
a
with
Max Verstappen
Alonso.
team.
yeah, something like that. My point is, it's been 3 years, and I think it's very unless and until you are a Sky Sports
I just think-
commentator
can-
pundit who's completely lost
Can I
his
be
mind.
honest? The thing though
Yeah.
I
is,
still don't think it's. I don't think it's George Russell's team. You know why it's crazy to think that? And I know
I
you'll
don't
be
think
like,
it
no,
is.
you
not
it
yet,
won't be.
maybe.
I'll tell
but
you why,
It should
because-
be.
Look, if Kimi Antonelli joins, then it is George's team. But if Max is coming, bro,
Yeah.
you are literally the second. You're Nico Rosberg 2.0.
A quick
They brought a champion
a quick thing on that
to-
that
to prove a point.
A quick thing on that kind of annoys me is I think that George has kind of done everything he can for it to be his team. He made some
Yeah.
mistakes last
Yeah.
year, but every driver
he
when
did.
they have a like we've seen this with Lewis, we've seen it with Vettel, we've seen it with Max, we've seen it with everyone. When you have a difficult car to drive, you just can't get the grasp of it. Sometimes you have an off race or an off season,
You're inexperienced.
and that's the thing as well.
You're inexperienced.
But I think
That's the whole
George
thing.
is in the unfortunate position where he deserves to be the team leader, but Mercedes is in a weird
won't be.
situation where they can't just rely on one driver at the minute they're trying to make a statement. One thing before, when it comes to Ferrari and Charles, right, I think the thing that we need to keep in mind is he has to play the team game for a couple of reasons. And we see this with drivers all the time, right, is he hasn't won a championship yet, right? So he hasn't got that like overarching, I'm a fucking champion.
Max had
No,
it.
but okay, but my
no,
point.
my point
no,
is not entirely that.
But before
What I'm
before you
saying
finish
is-
though,
Yeah,
the
go
thing is, Max was a different situation because Ferrari is Ferrari. First of all, right? It's a very different
Yeah.
situation, and also Max had Jos, that arsehole sitting in the paddock behind him, who will basically say, "You either treat my son as a god, or we're fucking out of here."
Yeah.
Right? You can't play that with Ferrari and with Charles. So Charles has to play
but
the game.
Charles has
Can't play that with Mercedes either.
And it's Vettel could play that with Ferrari to an extent because Vettel was a 4-time world champion. Same with Lewis can turn around and say, Mercedes, your car is shit because he's a 7-time world champion. These guys, same with Alonso. These guys get that status where they can say and do what they want realistically. Charles isn't there
That's
yet.
Can't say
okay.
anything.
But there's a reason. But there's a reason Charles has been signed on a 50-year contract.
Because he's fucking fast.
Because Ferrari values him as
yes,
well.
yeah, of course.
The point is he should and if he tries to pull his weight around, I think Ferrari will let him. I think Fred will.
But
let
at the
him.
same time,
he doesn't
need to. He doesn't need to shout at Sainz. What's he? Science is already leaving the
point-
team. It doesn't. What more
No,
can they
the
do?
point is,
Yeah,
by this time, it should have
I
been.
think he's just trying to be nice to him. He's trying to be nice to
That's the
Sainz.
whole thing I'm saying.
No, I know. Yeah, but
I think no. I'm saying he's trying to be nice to Sainz as a pity. I don't mean it as in an honest.
That comment
yeah.
was wicked, by the way. Did you see that comment?
Yeah, I saw when he
He's-
said, "Oh yeah,
he's-
he's always crying about something." Yeah,
No,
from
no,
Sainz.
not science, not from science, from
Oh.
Charles. He said he's trying to do something spectacular
Exactly.
because where he is in his career right now.
It's pity, literally.
That
it's
was-
pity. And you tell me that's the comment of a nice guy. If I need somebody to tell me "f you" in my face, then tell me that, because somebody tell me that, I'm closing everything, bro. I'm
that's like
leaving.
when your parents.
I'm
That's when
retiring.
your parents say, "I'm not angry. I'm disappointed."
Yeah.
I'm just
You know,
disappointed,
that-
literally.
Oh, Jesus.
So, Jesus. So signs in my talking about Carlos and talking about Charles here,
Yeah.
and they had a lot of back and forth in this whole race. Carlos all of a sudden decided to remember the rule book when it's not on his side, but when he sent Alonso to Australia and Alonso to Narnia in Australia last year, he was saying in his car, please tell them to wait, please,
Oh,
please,
that was
please, because
heartbreaking at the time.
it
Yeah.
was heartbreaking to watch.
He was crying.
But yeah, it was heartbreaking to watch. But then, bro, you did it to yourself. I know it's sad, and you had a great race, and you lost it exactly one corner. You lost it in one corner because of
Yeah.
a restart. Don't get me wrong. I love that dramatic restart, and I hope we have it again in whatever race they pick. I want that chaos. That's the kind of chaos.
I mean, that race, if they had not gone back, it would have been a Nico Hülkenberg podium.
Yeah.
Imagine.
I wouldn't be here.
We could have had a Nico. Do you imagine a Nico Hülkenberg in the past? You don't know the feeling.
I can't
wanted
imagine a
that.
Nico Hülkenberg podium because it's.
I mean, now he's going to
that
Audi.
it
He
was
can't.
there. I think no. We could have actually had the podium. It's not because of Carlos. It's because of the Alpines.
I'm.
No, it's because of Lance.
I'm.
You forget. Even he crashed.
Are you guys not worried?
We just locked up and he went to the ground. So, what I'm trying to say is, in general, Carlos, he's not. And I've tweeted this yesterday, and people they were hanging me, and I don't know
Spaniards,
why.
right? Yeah.
Spaniards and specifically Norris
I'm just going to
haters,
start
which is
speaking
until
Spanish
now.
now for the crack.
To-
No mames, cabrón.
to be honest, until now I don't get the hate
Yeah.
towards the guy. I don't know what is it, and I don't want to find out or anything why exactly. But Carlos is a good driver and he's a solid second driver. Out of all the second drivers you would need now in F1,
Yeah.
you would need a Carlos Sainz, not Perez, not Bottas. Now it's Carlos' time to be the new Multi 21 guy, to be the new Bottas, to
But
be
does
the
he
new
know that?
Perez. Yeah, exactly. That's the problem with Carlos. Carlos thinks that he can win a championship. You can do that, bro. Yes. If they put you in a Red Bull and they put Logan Sargent as your teammate, yeah,
He
you
should go
can
to
win the
Audi and hope
championship.
for
I
a
know
bronze.
that.
That's what he needs to do.
But and again, that's his problem. His ego was so inflated that he thought, let me persuade out. We all know, okay, 100% Audi. It's obvious.
Yeah.
And he was going, but then it dropped. Why? It's because of his negotiations about the contracts.
Yeah.
The man
He wants a
to be
1 year
paid
contract.
more.
No. What he wants is an option after every season.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Audi
exactly.
has made it clear they want a driver for the
Yeah,
long
yeah.
term, for the entire project.
The problem
to
is you've got
ultimately-
a situation where he's
And-
got Sainz Senior as a father. It's the exact same situation as Max with Yoss. The difference is when you have Max's talent, you can kind of get away with that. With
Yeah.
Sainz, it's like
And
Sainz
when-
is a very, very. I rate Sainz extremely highly. I think he's a very, very good driver.
Too high.
Yeah, you say too high all the time, but I admit he is not a Max, a Hamilton, a Russell. He's not that tier. He's slightly below
Yeah.
them. And unfortunately, if
Yeah.
you've got a
He's the first in the slot in that tier
that is
below
the
them.
perfect way of
Yeah.
summing it up. Yes, and the
Precisely.
problem with that is if you've got a difficult management team around you, and that's where you are, it's going to make things more tricky. If you're like I said, if you're Verstappen or Hamilton and Jos Verstappen walks in and you're like, I can't stand this fucking asshole, but his son is Max Verstappen, you're like, yay, come on
That's
in.
honor.
It's yeah, exactly. So the problem Sainz has is you can't have those two things at the same time.
Precisely. And for
His
Sainz, I think
situation is similar to Oscar Piastri. Like the man that even jump into F1 is already stirring the pot and causing drama with his famous tweet and all that, and you're like, whoa, like bro, you're not even in F1 yet and you're already doing this. I hope you have the talent to back it, but guess what? He has.
This
So
was one of
the
your
problem
questions
with
for this
Sainz-
podcast you wanted to talk about.
this is a segue. This is a perfect segue, by the way. And just to lay it out,
Sorry, just before you
Lando
do,
Norris,
Ahmed,
one-
do you want to just
yeah.
finish? Because you were just saying the problem with Sainz there. Just we cut over you.
Oh yeah, quickly. So yeah, the problem with him, he's inconsistent, but not in a bad way, in a good way. Like he's when he's good, yeah, he will be up there. Like let's say Charles has a fast car enough to get a podium, he is fast enough to be there behind him.
P4, P5, yeah.
Yeah, and or let's say he finishes ahead of Perez, who would have a faster car than him. So that's a good consistency. And bad consistency, like he would be nowhere near the top 5, but he's in the points, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of inconsistency he has. Now, what other teams look at, right, he's driving a Ferrari. We have an Alpine, or we have a Haas, or we have a Williams. That car's not guaranteed every time to be in the points. And when it can be in the points, can he be consistent, yes or no? So that's what teams look at. They see the other team's results and they put it on them and see where he would slot, basically, that kind of thing. And as you mentioned, the problem with his management is just trying to make some stuff for him, like make some crazy contracts, some like it's like a bound in vows at this point for him, like, and you can't be doing that. And the biggest example is that Ferrari were ready to go for a Lewis Hamilton for £100 million a year. Again, that's a 7-time world champion. He proved last season that this whole talk about 2022 that, oh yeah, Lewis is watching, Lewis just came back.
He's not.
And he in 2023 is like I can still do this.
The reason
I-
Lewis is good but not comfortable with the car is just because of the massive difference between the qualifying, the season, and the races. And when you see that sort of thing, what that generally tells you is the driver's not completely comfortable with the car because they can't extract everything over one lap. But when they get bedded in over a race, you can see the pace is still there. We've seen that with Charles last year, for example. He wasn't comfortable with the car. The qualifying went away, but he was still very good in the races. I think it was a similar
Earlier this season as well.
I think Lewis this year is 4 or 3 tenths faster than George in the race.
He's very quick in the races.
And
yeah.
that-
I don't know if it's that much, but
No,
he's
no, no,
very
I'm-
quick in the races.
No.
I mean,
He-
anyone,
he-
honestly, full
he-
disclosure, anyone actually that follows the whole race data, I mean, don't do that. That's anyone will tell you.
No.
Please
Hey,
don't
anyone
do
who
that.
wants
No,
an
for me,
opinion
I
that is educated, stay away from this podcast, is what Casual is saying.
Yeah.
No.
Don't do that. That's entirely false.
I know who you're talking about. No, and I don't know which podcast
There are
you're talking about.
four or five of them. I mean, it's not one. There's a Spaniard guy. There are 2 others. They actually try to show the race pace comparison, which is you cannot calculate.
No. For me, I think there's one guy, and I don't know, I forgot the name of the account, but I see this guy. He focuses on the races where driver did not have issues, drivers did not have, let's say, car damage or a DNF.
The problem
because
is-
if you add all the numbers together, including the DNFs and the car damage, the numbers will
Crazy.
look all off. So,
Yeah.
in another way, for me, like, but either the numbers or no numbers, Lewis is faster than George in race pace,
I'd say.
Yeah.
and that much is
but
obvious.
It's a tenth or so. I won't say
it's
3 to 4
like
tenths
crazy
is.
fast. Yeah, it's not like crazy fast. Like we're not talking Bottas, Lewis, or Max and Perez. No,
Yeah,
not
no,
that
no.
crazy gap. But you can see him always edging him quickly. But in general, Sainz doesn't have that consistency, not in a good manner. Now you can see that there's a little bit of heat between him and other drivers on the grid. Like Charles is a whole conversation,
Oscar.
and between him and Oscar, and we've saw, I think, Gasly lashing on him on the media pen.
I love that.
When
I
he-
love that
when
Lando
he-
just kind of went by the way. I was just like, oh, look at those old friends. They just
Yeah,
kind of
well, I mean-
drifted by each other on track.
Yeah, and you have what's his name? Gasly give him the little punch, like not like punch, it's like little tap to the shoulder, but like never talk to me like
Yeah,
that.
but
Pointing the
that
finger
doesn't
in
mean
the
anything.
face.
Gasly's French, so that's just
Uh,
the way French people are.
So, I mean, in general, now you're riling up this whole CV of a little bit of, I'm not going to say bad attitude, but like, yeah, you're lashing out on people. This season, you're not as consistent as you started. He started very strong. And I was like, my goodness, who is this Carlos Sainz? I'm not familiar with your game. When I saw his pace in Bahrain, when I saw his pace in Australia over the whole weekend, he was
In fairness, he had a weight advantage. He was down a kidney. That's all that was.
So, and I remember even in Australia when I
Appendix,
gave
sorry.
him when I gave him compliments in Australia, I gave him compliments for what he did the whole weekend because he was literally the best driver on the grid. And a lot of people, like some people lashed out on me. What do you mean? Now Ferrari gave him advantage. And it's like, but why the fuck would they give an advantage to a guy who's leaving them?
Some of these, that
It doesn't
argument
make
just
sense.
doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
That was stupid.
But now that we see is Charles is again, he woke up and remembered who the F he is. And he showed Carlos like, bro, you are here. You're not bad, but you're here. And I am here. That's the reality of it. So, and now Carlos is not accepting that. And yeah, it's just not going to be a good taste for any team that he joins, and whatever it is. And he screwed himself with talking with multiple teams and basically getting none of them done.
So currently the situation, by the way, with the entire thing is Audi is mostly out. Apparently Carlos Jr. and Seidel had a massive shouting contest in, I think it was Monaco or something.
Genius. Yeah.
So there's 90% chance that he's not going to Audi. Plus, I think this weekend only Audi came out and said they want a driver who's willing to commit for a few years.
I do feel for Sainz
There's
there.
two teams, by the way.
In fairness.
yeah, I
Because
mean,
because
that is
he's just
true, for
like
sure.
you have to feel for him in a situation where like obviously Ferrari are going to go with Lewis because it's Lewis, but at the same time you do have to feel like he did everything he needs to in that seat and it's like it's gone and now he's in a situation where he has to jump to the back of the grid even though he has all this talent.
I think we're reaching a point
I do
in
feel
Formula
sorry
One
for
where
him.
I think we're reaching a
does
point in
Leclerc,
Formula where a
apparently.
lot of
Did you see him in Elkan after Monaco?
No.
yeah, he didn't even
Oh,
look
really?
at him, right?
The-
Yeah, I saw. He completely snubbed him. Yeah.
Like during the podium, like not sorry, when the cars lined up on
Afterwards,
the
yeah.
grid, after the race ended, and Charles, like Carlos was obvious, and let's not forget, Carlos did
P3.
the best to help Charles win, and he commented way before the weekend. Is like this weekend is all about Charles winning this race.
I mean,
So,
not like he was going to
there's
beat
that-
him anyways.
There's that side. No. I mean, obviously, but Ferrari knew that they have more chances with Charles, who proved it over and over. So after the race, you can see John Elkann was like he was like giving him the shoulder shake and all that, and talking to him. And
Yeah.
Carlos is literally like, "Yeah, get off me, mate." Like doesn't even smile or talk to him. It's like, yeah. But
I mean,
in a way, he
it's
has to-
understandable.
yeah,
It's understandable,
I mean,
honestly.
of course. It's unfair, as you mentioned, Jason. Like, if it was any other driver, they would keep Carlos. But when it's Lewis who
Obviously.
picked up the phone,
You have to. You have
It's
to.
look it's
There's no. It's not even a. It's not
this
even.
is just
discussion,
this
but
is just
honestly,
Formula One.
There
Like,
was
when you've got a 7-time world champion, like even doesn't have to be a 7-time. You look at like Vettel, for example. You got a 4-time world champion calling you. You got a you have
100%.
to. And when it's Lewis Hamilton, and like, I'm sorry, but no team is turning that. The
Look,
only
it's
team
Lewis
that's
or
turning
Max.
down Lewis Hamilton is Red Bull because Max is there. That is literally it. There's
that
no
is
other
it.
team that, and even I'm sure in that situation, Horner will be like, Max, come on, like, come on, Max.
I mean, it happened last season, didn't
Yeah,
it?
like
Remember this came up when
that was
Lewis's
father called,
when
apparently.
Horner revealed.
Yeah,
I mean, still, it's the Hamilton name.
yeah,
you know?
yeah. But,
the phone number only
Yeah,
shows
yeah.
that.
but apparently Horner
look,
did
what happens-
actually talk to Max, and they talked about it. Max said he didn't
Marco.
turn it.
He talked to
Helmut
Marco.
Marco. Sorry, yeah. But apparently Max said he was open to it, but we don't know how much of that's true, you know? Like,
Yeah, he's not.
But then
He wasn't.
Max
Apparently,
did
he
one
also
big
turned
mistake.
down Alonso.
yeah.
Max
Uh,
did one huge
yeah.
mistake.
What? Which way?
Max did one huge
Which was?
mistake, and that is letting Alonso get to know about the whole thing. Because Alonso is the type of guy.
Alonso's here, like,
bro, he would spill the beans.
Shit-stirrer.
Like, shit stirrer, and he would spill the beans to everyone. And he was like, listen, I talked as well. And they basically
Yeah.
said, Max doesn't want
Yeah.
me there. He's
Yeah, yeah.
scared. And he
Yeah.
doesn't want anybody who would be competitive to him. And I was like, you know what? In a sense, fair
Makes
to Max,
sense.
because he built himself to that position, and not to be exactly with a driver that will basically be a headache and nuisance
It's
to
also
him.
Yoss's influence
And
as
in
well,
a-
I think. Yoss very much doesn't...
Yeah, so you're going and you're gonna have Helmut Marko, so you're gonna go 3 against
With his
1.
eye on the prize, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Again, for Sainz, I think hand on heart, where do you think he ends up?
Williams.
Yeah, I think it's either Williams or he takes a year out, which means he doesn't come back, because I think Audi have kind of gotten sick of it now, and by the sounds of it, you know, Audi have kind of had enough.
He ends up at Alpine.
No, I can't.
Here's
I think
why.
it's possible.
Here's why.
I think it's a possible thing. Yeah.
Yeah, here's why. Because
That poor
Alpine in short
bastard.
term is going to be a better. Yeah. I mean, he has Flavio.
That's true. Actually, he should go there. Flavio turned the team around in 2 days, so that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One
One day,
day,
sorry.
by the way. Actually, a few hours. As soon as the announcement was made, both cars were in top 10.
Speaking
Anyhow,
of underperformance,
speaking of underperformance, finally, again, Oscar Piastri. I mean, how do you rate his entire season? Because when I started...
can I give you the excuse?
Yeah.
No,
Go ahead.
it's not an excuse. This is just...
That Norris is good?
Well, no, first of all, I have said since, I think 2020, I've been ranting at people saying Norris is up there with Leclerc and Verstappen and all these guys, and just wait. And everyone's been saying he's a fucking butler and he's going to mistake. And I've been like, he has winless on his back, and when he gets that over with, you just watch. Anyway, I'm not going to pat myself on the back anymore because I do that enough every week. Piastri,
Oscar.
yeah, Piastri has the raw pace that you get from like a Norris and a Russell and everyone else. Every weekend I'm seeing exactly the same thing. He is struggling with learning how the tyres adapt and how to manage the tyres. And I think when we came to Spain, you could see straight away, Sainz, for example, as we just talked about Sainz, if you look at his qualifying, he was really quick in sector 1 and then dropped off over the course of the lap. And that is indicative of Spain.
Okay,
Exactly. That is indicative of Spain with these temperatures. It is painful on the tyres. And we come to a weekend where there's high deg, and all of a sudden Piastri is kind of nowhere compared to Norris. It was expected. I think Piastri is very, very good, but it's just tyre management.
I'm going to contradict you on one thing.
You contradict
because
me on
it
everything.
was
Don't say
stunning.
one thing. Don't put
Yeah.
that.
Just for this
Okay.
one. So, how the fuck he screwed qualifying, I can't really understand. But there was one thing that stood out with Oscar. It was the last stint. I mean, everyone fixated on Norris. Norris and Oscar had similar tire life. Oscar was significantly faster.
Ooh, okay.
Significantly faster. Same tire, soft.
Maybe it's just
one issue-
low on fuel.
Both are low. on
Maybe
fuel.
he's good when I mean maybe he's good when the car is low on fuel and the car is light.
Possibly.
And maybe he's not
there's
managing
one
There's
more
less
thing.
when
tyre
it's
deg
heavy
at that
load
point,
of
you
fuel.
see. So there's less to manage.
Yeah,
There's
exactly. That's what I mean.
There's one more thing. Apparently, I think Lando had a used soft and Oscar had a fresher soft. So that might have played a role. But the thing is, the race pace was there. Where my main concern comes in is right now after Spain, we have Lando at I think 150 points. Oscar is at 87.
You're saying they
points.
should bring Ricardo back.
That's the kind of
That's what
gap
you're
that
arguing
Max
for, isn't
and...
it?
No, I'm arguing...
You
where
just
do
can't
think
stand
Oscar actually
Australia. Oh wait,
stands?
they're both Australians. Sorry, never mind.
Both Australians. You'll have to
Damn
find a
it.
different excuse.
The problem, I think Oscar.
What do you think
And-
his ceiling is?
Oh, it's too early to tell, bro. Like it's his.
Really?
Like
I mean,
no.
within 2
no, no.
years, I could tell where Lando is going to ultimately reach, where Leclerc, George, you could see it. It's been 2 years.
You can see some of traits here and there, like you see puzzles, but you don't see the full picture. If you go back to the first 2 seasons of Max, I would say he's a crash prone, but then
No, he was.
we're talking about
Max's first 2. He won in a
To
Red Bull.
be, to
in
be
the
fair,
second
though,
season.
the point is he did make mistakes, and same with Leclerc, same with Norris.
That is
No,
fine. That is fine.
he made-
He was
when we're
too
talking about the
aggressive.
first-
but he's
Yeah.
but you know the one thing about him that he's
Mm-hmm.
quick.
yeah,
So you know that he has it there.
exactly. That's what I wanted to see.
Piastri, he has the pace, but as Jensen,
I like being called Jensen. I'm
mentioned-
changing my name to Jensen. That's good. No, it's okay.
Jason.
No, I want
sorry.
to change it now.
The problem with Oscar is just like not learning well with these tires. He did not suffer with these humongous tires in F2, but then again, we're talking about 2 different beasts here, right?
Yeah,
We're talking about cars that are heavier, faster, brakes later, and la 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 la. And those cars were lighter. So most of drivers, if you really want to tell their talents, mostly it shows in F2. And
Yeah.
from there, you'd be like, oh, wow, we have something special here. Max is a different, I think he's a special case. And I know, like for example, people now they're pooping on Kimi Antonelli and Ollie
That's because
Behrman.
of Prema.
But
yeah.
exactly.
They're basically
So you
driving
have-
Haas. That
there you
that
go, and
version's
look where they're
Haas.
dragging it up to.
Yeah,
Agreed.
And you also you notice like, but then you see their pace in the race, and you're like, holy, this is crazy. And you see Kimi starting P15 or something like that, and finishing P5. So you're like, okay, this kid has the pace. So most of the time, the machine may not be helpful for you. Like we've
Yeah.
seen Oscar in Qatar. That man was faster than Norris almost the whole weekend until. Well,
yeah, he was. He was.
yeah,
I
he
think,
was
yeah.
until McLaren decided to pull Red Bull and doing the undercut on Oscar and make Norris be ahead of him with the pit stop strategy. So
Wait, which
it's-
Saudi are you talking about?
no, I'm talking about Qatar.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it sounds like what's going on
Racist
here?
here, just mixing up Middle Eastern
So
Go on,
countries.
Leslie.
I think so I think Oscar, the issue with him now, I think there is a little bit pressure. There is the pressure because
Yeah.
the car now is good. This car can actually win races now, right?
Yeah.
Last season was the learning curve. Now you're in that pressure of the car can actually do something, and you want to tell how. Look at the face of Mr. Zach Brown, like his face
wasn't
after the
happy.
race. Like
Yeah.
that man knew that car can win. He knew they could have had another win. in the
Norris's
back,
reaction
and they don't want to go.
was so telling of that as well, because he was so unhappy with a P2. So unhappy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
By the way,
Because-
I don't want
and
to
I'm sure-
talk about Max here, but
No,
one
no, no,
pop quiz, slight
Yeah.
quiz. When was the last time Max lost a position on the first lap?
Australia 2023, when he lost to both Mercedes.
On the first lap. And okay, no, the last time was in Qatar.
No, so 2023.
Qatar sprint.
Oh,
Last
to
season
Oscar.
Qatar sprint.
Oh, you mean when Oscar overtook him? Oh, yeah.
He hasn't
But to be
lost a
honest-
position. He hasn't lost
Yeah.
a position on the first lap since then.
Okay, I
His
thought you
starts
meant at
have
the start.
been
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and his starts have been. And Lewis 2016 season, he primarily lost the season on starts. I think he had pretty fuck all starts almost. I think in Japan, Russia
like
or Bahrain or far too
he
many.
brought out his 2016 start prawns.
Yeah, and the point is, at the end of the day, Max is so perfect. There's no mistake even on that aspect. And it's not like he's always got pole position. He's been on P2 or P3 and he's jumped to the start, to the lead. He did it in, I think, Las Vegas. Again, he got a penalty for that. But the point is, every time, in every aspect, he's so perfect. These guys don't even have a chance. I mean,
this
it was
is the
actually
thing,
quite
though. Like
interesting.
you've got to keep in mind, though, like this is the evolution of every driver. Like so, Max straight away when he came to the grid had pure performance, right? One, he wasn't in the fastest car.
In the back.
he had the like he would come out in FP1 and you'd be like, shit, this guy's quick, like straight away, right? he had his issues. He was a bit too aggressive. Say that mildly at points.
Those are
My point is,
basically
he
the
made some mistakes.
edges that
He was too aggressive. There was simple things that but this happens to every driver. And I think Oscar has that pure pace, but the tires aren't there. He has to get this experience. Lando now is just a completely different driver, even since Miami, I would say, because Lando right now, if you look at the start, turn 1 in Spain, look at how cautious he was into that first corner compared to even going against Lewis in China sprint. Like, he tried to go around the outside instead of just thinking, my car's got the pace, I could hold back here. And if he had held back, he would have overtaken Lewis. We saw with Max later on in the race, I think, personally, from the race pace of the two cars, because this wasn't the new Mercedes. So I think drivers evolve like that. Norris, even now, a few races later, you can see the mistakes aren't there. He's not making silly moves. That win coming off, I think, just gave him that last bit of, okay, I'm ready now to kind of move on. And Max, after 2021, after that big challenge of going against Lewis, Max now, even compared to 2021, is a very different driver. Very different driver.
Yeah, he's more assured.
Exactly. And this is just the evolution. We see it with Lewis, we saw it with Vettel, we've seen it with Verstappen. And I think Oscar's just, unfortunately...
I think the last time we saw something similar to Max 2021 was in Las Vegas at the start.
Yeah.
When he sent
Charles precisely. He got a penalty for that.
He sent Charles to Los Angeles at that point.
But that was very unusual for Max now. He's if that happened in 2020 or 2021, you'd be like, oh, Max is being Max again. Whereas now, if he does it these days, you're like, oh, that's odd. Max is really fucking annoyed. So look, I think Piastri is just...
Where do you think? How would you... Because at the start of the season, I ranked him right alongside the likes of all these top guys. But 87, 150, and it's not all down to luck. A lot of it is down to performance as well. And even in qualifying, I think it's 8-4.
Mine will be really...
So that's a massive gap.
Really, really quick. I think he is, in terms of just pure pace, he is somewhere between... that kind of front pack and Sainz. I think he's a lot... The problem is I'm not quite sure yet if he's as fast as, say, Russell, Verstappen, Norris, Hamilton in terms of just pure out of pace. But I think he is faster in terms of pure pace than Sainz. I don't think he's that, in that next tier, if that makes sense. The problem I have, and I'll finish this real quick, is just I had the same concern with Norris at one point because Norris continually wasn't getting that win. And I was like, it's just the car. It's just the car. It's just the car. But there is the flip side to that where I remember Hülkenberg coming in and Hülkenberg had the pace and he couldn't get on top of the new tyres. And look at what happened to Hülkenberg's career. So Oscar does need to get on top of this over this season because if not, we've seen very, very fast drivers.
He risks becoming... Yeah. And his race, by the way, got compromised.
He will be probably a new Mark Webber.
I know what you mean.
I mean as...
Yeah.
I don't mean it in a bad way, but in a sense of Mark Webber was not slow, by the way. He was fast, but it's just...
He was stunningly fast. He almost won the 2010 title, people forget. That would have been his title.
Wasn't he ahead of...
So, exactly.
He was ahead of Vettel going into...
He was.
Yeah.
Vettel was third, and the first time Vettel led
was
the
the last race.
Was the last race.
So
I was so happy that season. Amazing.
So I think it's just a matter of him getting on top of those tires and getting used to. And by the way, not just Oscar, even Lewis at the start of 2022, he was crap with those tires. He couldn't figure out something about them, and then but the race pace is a whole different animal, right? And you can see that in some races he wasn't there. He wasn't on at all. The same thing I think it happened with Gasly. He struggled with those tires, and so it's a learning curve. And I think Oscar so far did not manage them. So he wants to be fast. I don't know if any of you ever played F1 Manager, but when you play F1 Manager, and I do a lot, and I do the most Ferrari has strategies ever. You want to be fast, but then you're eating up. So you're eating up those tires quickly, and then now you're slow. What you do from there? So F1 is not just about the car and the machine. It's just how you nurse those tires and how you take care of them. And I think there are so very few F1 drivers that can push them to the cliff and still be fast by taking care of them. I think, in my opinion, there's two drivers, and I'll put a third one. It would be Max, Lewis, Alonso. There's the only three who can push those tires to the cliff, be fast, and they're not degrading quickly. So, Oscar, I think I would still give him a slack for this year, but next season, if this problem's still there, then conversations
exactly how I feel. I think this season is kind of the last one to get on top of those tires, and if he's not on top of those tires by next year, you've got to ask serious questions, because the pace is already there, but if he can't manage the tires, he's never going to be quick.
Where's the problem, basically?
And what concerns me most about it at the moment is if we look at the Red Bull versus McLaren fight, even when the Red Bull is faster, I think the McLaren is kinder to its tires, because Norris seems to come back at the end of a stint, whereas Max seems to be faster at the start of a stint, which tells me that, you know, if the tires are managed correctly, the McLaren's actually better on its tires than the Red Bull.
Yeah.
So Piastri doesn't have an excuse like, say, you know, with the Haas or the Ferrari last year, where, this thing eats tires and Norris just has so much experience. It's like, no, this thing's quite kind to tires. You're just being particularly hard on them. So, yeah.
And, you know, my main worry with Oscar is I'm yet to see a weekend where he blows Lando out of the water. That is one weekend that... I mean, something like where he has...
I know, like a complete another dominance over a weekend.
I think there's one weekend, I forgot which weekend.
Maybe to an extent Qatar, last season.
No,
maybe to an extent.
Even Qatar. Give me a second. Let me put my...
I just realised as well, we're getting up to 2 hours, so after this, Oscar, let's get on to the Austria predictions, and then we'll...
Yeah.
All right, let's go. But no, go on until I found...
I think might be Saudi last season, but again, that was it wasn't really that representative.
Okay. There is one race, and I think... hold on, let me just... So I can be correct here, and nobody can poop on me after and be like, oh yeah, you're chatting nonsense.
They will.
People
will
still get it.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Okay. I could be wrong, but without keep looking too deep into this. I think there's one race.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's I think it's the Belgian Grand Prix
from last year. Okay.
Last year, except his race did not finish because of Carlos's front wing damage.
Yeah,
he was doing good in qualifying. He was doing good in. He even got the pole for the sprint. And he won the sprint, and he was on top until Carlos decided to say, Oscar was ambitious, like, bro, get a wake-up call for yourself. That was not the
the other issue he has now as well is he's just fighting against, like I said, the kind of absolute confidence of
the team is starting
and Norris is just
also
at his
one thing the team is starting to lean towards.
So he's just got he's got everything against him at the minute, and like I said, I'm not going to say he's going to be a Hulkenberg, but you know, every driver has the capability of getting to that situation. You know, if you don't show it, F1 is very unforgiving.
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
this has to be. In my my expectation was this season both of them were going to be neck and neck, and by the end of the season, again, it's not like I didn't rate Norris that well. I rated Oscar probably too much. I thought Oscar would have beat him.
You're just a fanboy. I get it. It's fine.
Yeah, you accused me of being anti-Australian just, I think, 10 minutes ago.
I changed my... People change.
Take a pick.
People change.
Yeah. Anyways, enough of the previous weekend. Finally, let's get to the Austrian Grand Prix.
We normally keep these to an hour and a half. I blame Ahmed. He's been too...
I agree.
It's fine. He's the first guest we've had on who knows anything about F1, including the hosts.
Precisely.
That's really insulting to the Mobile Chicane. My apologies. And Peter Brook, who
Peter
literally names himself as an F1 historian.
Yeah.
No, anyway.
Yep. Again, well, if he keeps calling Ricciardo cockroach, we can really. I mean,
bloody British. They're always on it. Right. Let's talk about Austria. So, Austria.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Right.
Austria. Yeah. Austrian Grand Prix. First of all, first question I always ask, what's the pecking order that you expect? Ahmed?
I think Red Bull is going to be fast. Ferrari could get it together well, and McLaren is not far off. But I still am expecting. Okay, it's a 50-50. It's either a max win, and I mean a genuine, either a max win.
It's a sprint weekend, I think, and rain is apparently expected in every race these days.
The problem with sprint weekends is they kind of give you the layout of what to expect, and in the race, and just like, I don't mind them, but it's just like they kind of spoil it. But I wouldn't mind, let's say, a rainy sprint and a dry race, or the opposite.
Is it a sprint weekend?
We had it last year. I think so.
Yeah,
Lawrence
it
said
is.
so.
It is.
I don't remember.
Sorry.
So
Yeah.
anyway, I think it's a 50% max win, or we're gonna have a new winner this season.
No, not that. The pecking order. The pecking order in terms of how do you expect the cars to be?
It's gonna be Red Bull, McLaren, and Ferrari. They will be on par because they were both good last season here,
Yeah.
and even the season before. Mercedes is gonna just slot behind them because Mercedes, even with the most dominant F1 car, they were never good in that circuit. They were just they had a good race. They never even managed to finish with both cars on podiums, or never 1-2.
They had 1-2 in 14, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying ever since the cars got wider from 2017 forward, they never got a 1-2 or just dominate
They didn't
Austria.
win. I don't think they won any of them.
They won
17 was Bottas when he had that crazy start. I think 18 was Max, 19 Max.
Well, Red Bull owns the.
Oh yeah, they won in 20.
Red Bull owns
they
the
won in
circuit,
20.
so they can just make
Yeah,
sure
exactly
that Mercedes
what I'm saying.
don't win.
Even in 20, that's what I'm saying. In 20, they had the most dominant car and they struggled to pull the win. So what I'm saying is so I'm gonna go Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren on par, Mercedes, Aston Martin just about behind them, and Alpine. I think I'm forgetting something.
Haas. I mean, there's this meme. If you're forgetting something, it's not important.
So, I think that Haas and Alpine is going to be the proper battle of mids for the point, because they both have crappy tire deck. Oh, V-carb. Sorry, I'm gonna throw all these three in the mix.
Yeah.
The V-carb, the Haas, and the
downgraded Aston
Alpine.
Martin.
All these guys. No. All these guys fighting for the last
2 slots.
position of the
Yeah,
points. And because the V-carb have better tire deck, but both Haas and Alpine, they have horrible tire deck. So
Keeps forgetting that.
So
Okay, it's not important. Alpine is not important anyways. Jason?
Well, obviously Flavio's back, so Alpine are going to win the race after a safety car with Ocon in the wall. This is what's beautiful about F1. It's so hard to call of the top teams. I think that Red Bull will slightly outdo McLaren in this one. I do think McLaren, when we get to Silverstone, will be the faster car, but I think Red Bull probably take it in Austria. But I think it's so close that I genuinely could not tell you whether Norris or Max going to win. And I'm saying it's out of those two drivers as well, personally. I think Mercedes will be ahead of Ferrari this weekend after what I saw at Spain. The reason is I think that this is one of those shorter tracks. It's very high speed. And I think the Ferrari, when it comes into those braking zones and exits out, they're good, but
Fractions are not.
I think the Mercedes is going to beat them out this weekend. I think it's going to be. Fuck it, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to say Norris wins just to piss off Red Bull. Max second, so the McLaren second, and then I'm going to say Ferrari are behind Mercedes. Aston are going to be dawdling around trying to figure out why the wind tunnel's not working. I think V-Carb are going to be the leader of the pack behind them, because I think they brought all the upgrades and couldn't figure out the setup. I think with the data they have now, they will be quite quick, so I think they'll be somewhere just behind Aston. Alpine will be exploding at the back with Flavio wondering what's happening. Haas, Sauber and Williams will all just be doing something. I don't know what they'll be doing, but they'll be doing something.
Yeah,
They'll be existing.
They will
Yes.
exist.
We need Austrian
Yes.
oxygen.
They'll be enjoying the mountain forest,
Styrian
yes.
mountains.
and it is lovely there. Salzburg,
one
it's
driver-
lovely.
One driver we didn't mention from last race, but I'm not going to go to the last race. So I think he
No, you
might
can,
do
you
good
can.
this race. No. He might do good. Bottas, he had a great
That's true.
race
Yeah.
in
What?
Spain, but it's just the car
Wait.
bad that
What? Where was he after the first lap?
Checking his mullet.
No, again had a shitty start, and I mean,
no, but throughout the race itself.
picked the. Sorry.
Like the man was so headache to the point Aston Martin was doing overcuts and undercuts on the guy himself.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, the Aston Martin
Yeah,
was
yeah.
bad, but it just shows you how much he was doing. I'm not saying he was doing fantastic, but he was doing good race.
he
like he
finished
showed them.
17th. Joe was 14th.
Well,
Damn it, casual.
with those pit stops, bro, and those strategies, expect everything. So yeah.
So basically, he had a shit start. He finished behind Joe Guan Yu, but he had a killer race. I mean,
No, he had a good race. If you go back and watch it, you will see.
yeah, no,
No,
I understand.
Look
but-
at his pit stops and everything, and we know that team is
So
not the
we're
greatest. when
not
it comes
brilliant
to
Yeah.
with stops. Yeah, I think that's an understatement.
Yeah, I mean, 50 seconds is
one
the
more
benchmark.
One more prediction for Austria. A shitload amount of money of penalties for that
Oh
race.
yeah, I think.
Track limit.
Yeah, I
Track
think.
limit.
How many did we get?
limit.
Ocon had in 50, 60 seconds. How many seconds?
You know what? I think we better do a watch along. I mean, I don't drink alcohol, but let's do a watch along, and we take a shot every time
We do
there's
a
a
shot of
track
water.
limit violation.
Will be even if you did a
Yeah.
shot
Shot
of
of-
water, you'd be drunk
Yeah.
by the end of it. That's how.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
need a
Yeah.
jug of water next to me here because that's how much we're gonna be hearing from this.
Oh yeah,
We'll
I mean
see.
that was I mean, I think I have a somewhat similar prediction, but I think McLaren is going to be quicker.
Okay.
Because Max I went through the entire press conference and Max was not confident at all.
Mhm.
He said that tire wear is going to be a big issue, and McLaren has the edge on that. So I'm going with Lando winning, Max second. I think Ferrari is going to be the third fastest car. Why? Because somewhat different. Because I think the top speed is going to matter.
Okay.
Ferrari has
Okay.
the edge, and again, fourth will be Mercedes. Maybe I think the third, fourth, they will kind of intermingle. After that, it's whoever the fuck wants to be. Because really, I mean, it could be RB, it could be Alpine, it could be maybe Aston, it could be Haas. I mean, it could be Nico Hülkenberg, Magnussen be back
Yeah,
there.
it's like the
again,
old thing when
trying
you
to
step in
crash
shit,
into
you don't
someone.
care what animal it is, basically. Catchy. Yeah.
Pretty much. It's still shit.
Good thing you mentioned about the tire deck because that's exactly what. If Max said that, then I think I might believe your prediction, casual, because that's exactly what they suffered from in Imola. The tire deck was so bad that Norris
Yeah,
was clocking
That
8
was
tenths
so
per
weird.
lap.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if that's a thing that they will suffer, then we're in for a good Austrian Grand Prix because I had him dunking the competition. That's what I had.
I mean,
I'm praying. I'm the
yeah.
Lulu for Lulu, and I would love to see Lewis pull something out of his ass and surprise the public. But I just know Mercedes; they usually don't turn in.
Yeah,
Austria.
I don't
I mean,
think
let's be
Austria is
fair.
going to be a particularly. Yeah.
I mean, look, let's
Yeah.
be fair. If
Silverstone.
Lewis
Silverstone
pulls something
was all
out of his,
different color.
I mean, look, if Lewis pulls something out of his ass, we will be impressed.
We know that if Lewis wants, you mean literally
Okay,
speaking, yeah.
I don't mean it literally.
You mean after the Silverstone Grand Prix, he reaches back and pulls a British flag out, and he's like, "What?
Where did that come from?
I think if Lewis is going to win a race this year, we want it to be either Silverstone or Brazil,
Silverstone.
right? His two home countries.
Cinema.
Yeah.
Cinema.
Yeah.
It's gonna be cinema.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. It's gonna be cinema.
Yeah.
I mean, what's funny for me is that the last race win for him is my first home GP. I'm like, how do I even get that? I get the last and the first all together.
Saudi
yeah.
2021, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's his last race win. and it
After
was the
that, we were
first
having
Saudi
fun
GP.
like it's AD 21. Yeah. I have that on a T-shirt if anyone wants it.
I don't want to talk about that day because that's. I've watched sports so many. I'm a big football fan, and if there's any day that was so painful for me,
I
it's
say,
that freaking day. I
Bring
will
back
never
Messi.
forget it.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
We have the tire deck issues, close
I think
we don't need
competition.
one thing that actually pisses
need
me off.
Max.
You know, one thing that actually pisses me off is pretty much a race fixer is back on the grid, and ideally that piece of
Hey,
shit
leave
Flavio
Pat Fry
did,
alone, or
I
leave
hate
Pat
that
Simmons
bastard.
alone.
I mean, look, if ideally, you know what is going to happen if we have Michael Massey back today. In an ideal world, there should be less outrage when Michael Massey comes
What we
in
need is
as compared to
we
when
need to bring
Flavio
the
comes
whole
in.
gang back. We want Bernie back, Max Mosley back. We want
Oh my
Bernie,
God.
Max Mosley, Michael Massey, Flavio, Pat Simmons all to be running F1, and
You do know Max is
he
dead.
can. Look, listen.
Mosley.
Bernie Ecclestone is basically dead, and he's still talking to people.
Oh.
So
It skipped my mind for a second because I was like, when you said Max Mosley, I was like, wait, what? I was like, what?
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
going that far.
I said Max is dead. So Mosley's dead.
well, Mosley could come back from the grave and help out. Mercedes. He loves the Germans.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Oh,
you got that right.
you wouldn't bring back the Avengers.
No,
at
I'm
this
just
stage.
talking about a certain orgy that Max Mosley was allegedly at. No, sorry.
Or
He wasn't allegedly.
not
at,
allegedly.
His exact phrase was, "I was at a sex party, but it wasn't Nazi themed." And when you
Yeah.
you are coming out to clarify that the orgy you were at wasn't Nazi themed, you've done something wrong. Like that.
yeah.
Listen.
I don't think there's anything weirder this week than seeing Jacques Villeneuve on the Epstein Island list, and I'm like, I thought it's
Wait
fake
a
for
minute. Is it true?
Yeah,
I didn't even
believe
know
so,
that.
Yeah.
I've googled it, and
There
it's
was
actually true.
there was so many F1.
It makes
There,
so
there
much
was
sense.
there has been
I mean,
so
it
many
makes so
F1
sense.
people on the Epstein Island. I genuinely think they should just do a Grand Prix there. Like it would be great. They could
Yeah.
Oh my
think
God.
think
I mean,
about the
it's
market.
It's gonna
Bringing F1 to
it's
young
gonna
fans,
have the old
a new audience.
it's gonna have the youngest and the oldest attendance in the F1 history altogether.
And it would be a wet race.
A lot
Oh, okay.
a lot of
Skip that,
old
please.
men bringing young fans to a race. I mean, it's basically what F1's
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, that's
That's what the sport
Yeah.
is all about. Anyhow, I think we've
We're not
covered all
ending.
of things,
Yeah.
and maybe a
we're
few
ending
more.
on an Epstein Island
Yeah.
gag. Really?
And a
oh,
wet race.
Jesus Christ. If you haven't subscribed already, then please don't call your local police.
What's wrong with you? Yeah. And if you're offended,
Subscribe. Yeah,
you're welcome.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you guys are doing a hate podcast at this point. You're doing a
Yeah,
chaos.
we're having
chaos
Modi
pod-
on for the
podcast,
next one.
right?
Please don't.
Oh,
Why do you want me to
Because
get
no,
arrested?
I'm replacing you with Modi and Trump for the next one.
Look, you'll actually get more subscribers. Just
To be
give
honest
me a
with you,
cut.
if I had Modi and Trump on here, I think it'd still be a less offensive podcast. But anyway, that's because for
I
once
think
I'd
so.
be the
Double
least
talk.
offensive person on the podcast, which
Okay.
good. Let's leave it there.
Oh, God.
my
did
God.
we do our
Yeah.
podium predictions really quickly? Did we do them already?
Yeah. Okay, Ahmed, go ahead.
Max
Top
Norris
three.
Charles.
What did you go?
Max Norris, Charles.
Max Norris, Charles.
Norris Charles. Yeah.
Okay. Jason.
Norris, Max, and
Fucker changed his mind in 10 minutes.
I already changed it. I fucking told you I changed it. Already changed it. Norris, Max, and just for sheer banter, Alonso. It's not going to happen.
Awesome.
Wow.
Just for sheer banter. Yeah.
It would be
It-
impressive if
uh,
it happens.
It might rain, so
Yeah.
it might happen. Okay, Norris, Oscar, Max.
Okay.
1-2. Wow.
That would be-
My
yeah.
God.
I mean, my entire objective is the gap at the top
The
between
tire
P1
deck.
and P2 decreases. I've wished for a max DNF in the last 2 races, so I'm playing it a bit safer this time around.
Yeah. I'm sure the
PG.
Red Bull ring will be really excited about a McLaren 1-2 at their home Grand Prix.
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on, a papaya winning in front of the orange fans. Come on, it's suited
Well, I'm
right there.
hoping for a
Yeah.
McLaren
It
1-2
should
at
work.
Zandvoort. That's what I'm hoping for. So
Oh.
I think Mercedes could
Okay.
win Zandvoort, and I
Yeah.
have that.
okay,
Oh.
a McLaren one.
We,
I
we
have
A
are all
Mercedes to
McLaren
win
1-2 at Zandvoort has about the same feeling as a Max win at the British Grand Prix, doesn't it? It's that same kind of vibe
Yeah.
where you know the fan.
not now, by the way. It would have been more in 2021 because that was
Yeah.
one
Yeah,
hostile
yeah.
crowd. That was, I miss 2021, honestly. That emotion, that
I
There was
don't
a
know.
lot.
2021
Please
was a
let's not go there.
fantastic
Yeah.
season to watch, but I could have done without some of the off-track stuff, if I'm honest. Some of the off-track got
Yeah.
a bit like, oh, I can't stand this anymore. By the point where 2020, I remember when Abu Dhabi happened, just as it started, I was talking to my friend Killian, and I said, I really hope something happens at the end to just fucking blow this up because this season needs it because it's been so hostile.
yeah.
I did not, I did not expect what happened.
Where's Nicholas Latifi, by the way? I mean, that man changed the
I think they
entire...
buried him on Epstein's
He
Island.
basically
That,
drove...
that man changed lives. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah,
That
he did.
I swear to God, I will never forget. Like, it haunts me until today. I remember the last 10 laps, I was sitting there, and I know a lot of people's like, yeah, let's go all the way, 10 laps. And in my heart, I was keeping it to myself so I don't speak it into existence. It's like, something is off. I feel something. Please don't be
I
what
just-
I'm thinking, what it would
As
be.
soon as Lewis was leading and it was clear that Lewis had more pace throughout the entire race, I just literally, like,
Yeah.
it was from like lap 3 or 4, I just kept texting my friend Killian, like, I'm telling you, something's going to happen at the end. This
Something's
season
going to
cannot end calmly. Like, it can't. There's just no way.
I mean, usually safety car periods are
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
dull. That safety car period was pretty much everyone shouting over the team radio, do this,
Yeah,
Michael,
yeah.
do this. Come
I
on.
think that's what
it's
made
called
it
a
worse.
motor
That's
race.
what made it worse. The radios of the FIA. Yeah, the FIA radios is what made it
Who
worse.
decided that was
Yeah.
a good idea?
And-
Like,
By the way, when
Netflix.
when did all of these start? Remember when did all of these start? When Max crashed at Silverstone. And it ended at this race. By the way, I still remember that Silverstone race where Toto is saying, Michael, I mailed you the diagrams. Like, I'm officiating a fucking race.
there was
What do you
so
want
many
me
just
to do?
beautiful moments that season. But that's what I'm saying. It was like, if it was just the on track, it was interesting. But when you take the off track, it was fucking tiring. Like I said to people, I was like, I'm not a
Yeah.
Max or Lewis fan. I can't imagine how horrible of a season that was to sit through for either of those fan bases, because it must have been exciting and like
neither
just
of them
annoying.
wish
At
that.
this. As a neutral fan to
Yeah.
both of them, I remember just sitting back being like, this is fucking ridiculous. Like this is ridiculous. Like, you know.
I mean, I'll be honest. Saudi GP, the one
that
in
was
Jeddah,
ridiculous. Yeah.
Max was, look, the kind of that start which Max had where he basically jumped both. I think it was Lewis and Ocon. He jumped both of them on the first lap. Everyone else called it dangerous. I was like, this is pure brilliance that he did. The kind of car control.
overtake. I wasn't mad because he did it.
Yeah.
I was just mad because how good it was. I was
Exactly
just like,
the point. That was just,
you know-
I mean,
you
how
know-
is he
you know,
doing that?
I trusted them. I was like you shouldn't do that. Like you should. God damn it!
You
so
shouldn't be
good.
able to do that. You
was-
should
I was
not
like-
be
that
able
was
to do that.
Peak
I was like-
aggressive Max though, that entire race.
Yeah. He was playing with house money. I think he
The
knew
entire
that he did not have the
season.
car. He was just
Yeah.
going for it.
That entire season, if you ask me, because it started with Imola shoving Lewis on those sausage
Oh
curves
man,
from
when
there,
we jumped over that, yeah.
and Spain. Oh, Spain.
Yeah,
It's such
Spain,
an
Spain.
amazing season when you think back, because you could say that either driver could have lost the championship
deserve
at
it.
any point. Like in Imola, if it wasn't for the red flag, Lewis technically wouldn't have had the points there.
Lewis would have been
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
lap
like
down. Yeah.
you know, there's points where Max as well threw it away. Like Max at Silverstone.
Hungary. After Hungary, I gave up. I thought again this is similar to what happened in 17-18. Mercedes has the momentum. Lewis has the
Yeah,
pace.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
winning. and then Max kept crawling back, kept winning the races.
It was just insane.
That-
like even
wow.
like Silverstone is a perfect example of things that I love doing on Twitter, which is winding people up, because honestly, Max could have taken it easier at Cops, Lewis could have taken it easier at Cops, but depending on who posts about it, I just know what my response is going to be. Like, if it's a Max fan posting about it, then I love winding them up and saying,
By the way,
Lewis had all the
until-
right to go up there and he should have gone harder. And if it's a Lewis fan posting about it, I'm like, Lewis is a terrorist. Just because it's just so much fun, because it's such a tense season.
And come to think of it, until that point, the kind of racing between both of them,
yeah.
that was on the edge. That was so brilliant. I miss those things. I mean, again, we saw a bit of it between Charles and Max in Bahrain to an extent in 2022.
British
But
Grand Prix 2019 as well.
I think what I
Silverstone
I think
brings
what
it
I
out.
loved about 2021 as well was seeing that kind of Lewis back, because I think over 2019 and 2020, Lewis, for me, got a bit to a point where he was kind of like, he's just winning and he's going to kind of check
Complacent.
out soon. And
Yeah.
I kind of expected that at the end of 2021, he would retire, like get an 8th championship and go.
Yeah.
I'm half glad that didn't happen, because he's still around and you're getting to see kind of the old Lewis where he has to...
He brings the traffic
Yeah,
as
but
well.
he also
I'm
has
fine
to
with that.
fight now, which is kind of, it's great seeing Lewis fight. But I kind of did miss, remember at the end of 2016, that kind of Lewis where, he was holding
Yeah.
everyone up, and it was like, Lewis, come on now, this is silly.
Yeah.
He's like, I've lost the championship, I don't care. And I was like, I love that Lewis. Like that, that kind of...
Yeah.
I like seeing an F1 driver with that
if there
attitude.
were-
It's amazing.
By the way, if it was not Rosberg behind him, it was either Alonso, Max, Vettel, anyone, Lewis would not have been able to do that because any of them would have fucked it down the inside and just gone ahead.
Well,
That is
Rosberg
pretty
was already
much-
so worried because of remember Verstappen. He had to
was
he had to
mentally
overtake.
drained. Yeah,
But this is the thing. Like Lewis, regardless of what people want to say, like Lewis had obviously got the best car for a lot of years, but like Lewis also delivered constantly on track. The only things I will ever badmouth Lewis about is I think that at the start of the seasons he was kind of checked out a lot of the time. I think that's a fair argument.
And he had his fair share of... I think what Max has shown is what Lewis should have achieved in Mercedes. The kind of records that he's had. The 10 race win streak, or I think 19, 20...
I've always said
I don't
Lewis,
even
I think,
remember
is
how many
more
wins
like
he's got.
a Prost in terms of he played the long game all the time. And that's what... I don't think he would have won 7 championships if he didn't, because... a lot of drivers burn out if they try and just win constantly all the time every weekend. And I think, I'm not saying he
Might
didn't
happen
try
with
to win
Max.
every weekend, but I think by easing,
I think Max is already
maybe,
getting burned out.
yeah.
And you can feel it.
Honestly,
I'm not
24
saying-
races is a lot.
I mean,
I can understand.
look. Max, you can see him already like this season, like in the last 3 races, he's celebrating the win because it feels like he fought for it.
Yeah.
And in Spain, like bro was celebrating like as if it's his 4th
Yeah.
or 5th race, and they are the ones on the back foot, and now they believe that they can bring the championship fight to
This race
McLaren.
was a lot like Bahrain 2021 when Lewis beat Max in that particular one.
Max had definitely the faster car, and you can tell, and Lewis somehow managed to keep it. I mean, if it wasn't for giving the position back, I think Max would have checked out. But then, again, Lewis showed exactly why
It's amazing, isn't it,
is.
that 2021 was Lewis's best start to a season. Like that was my point.
Yeah.
Like it was like Lewis is the only
Yes.
argument I would have against Lewis in those years was that at the start of the season he was always kind of just, I'll show up in a while, like.
Yeah.
I think Max woke him up.
Do you reckon maybe
ideally
Lewis
into-
just was like, I feel bad for Bottas. Let's let him have a good start to the season and then I'll take it away.
No, I think Jensen Button said it the best. This Lewis in the ground effect era, you can see that he stays in the office. He keeps the team in hours inside there until past midnight or midnight and crunch all the numbers. Lewis in 2021 or even before 2021, and Jensen Button, as I said, Jensen Button said it best. They said if Lewis does the homework and crunch the numbers like everybody else, everyone should go home.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to compete with this guy.
Yeah.
You are finished. This guy literally comes in, puts his helmet on, and just drives.
And this is why I
So
think
look, I'm not saying that's what he does. I'm not saying that's what he does, but it's one of the things that he was doing. And if you remember, like even early 2021, he's like, I don't care about the sim. It does nothing to me. There are drivers
Mid-season.
who benefits from the sim, and there are drivers who don't. Like no matter how much you put them in there, they're like,
Kimi.
it does nothing to me.
Kimi Raikkonen.
Kimi Raikkonen. So it's just Lewis depends on his talent and his consistency.
Thankfully, he has a good bit
And
of that. So
now, yeah, and when you come to 2022, there's no longer that dominant car, and you have to be actually crushing numbers. We saw him do it, and he multiple times, like you would see him, like, and you would hear in the paddock that, oh yeah, he's still inside. And I remember even in Jeddah after this year in Jeddah after the race, after qualifying, he stayed there until like another 3 hours and a half after qualifying, or even more. So
I think Button talked about it. Yeah, I think Button also talked about it that during the McLaren stint, what worked for him, because he fared quite well against Lewis. It wasn't one-way traffic. And what he said was that I knew how to get the team on my side. And once I won those couple of races in the wet in Australia and I think it was China, the team started to be more equal, because earlier it was him going into the Lewis team. But by 2012 or whichever it was a bit like the things were more equitable. They were both paid the same amount, and from that point again Lewis went. But he said, I think again there was one quote from him. He said that if in 2014 it was Lewis and him in the Mercedes, he would have won the title. I kind of agree with him, because Jensen's biggest weakness was his qualifying, and in a car that is a second lap faster, he would have consistently been right next to him. So in the race you can see him doing the job, because Jensen was quite brilliant in the races. But yeah, these are the things that Lewis has worked on, and he's still, I think he's 40 now, close to 40.
I think it's going to be so interesting. Like, we should end the podcast in a sec, but I do think, genuinely.
I was about to say that. I was about to say that 20 minutes ago.
I should have said it an hour ago.
It's an interesting discussion.
This has been fun. The wife's probably downstairs like, oh, he told me he was going up for a 40-minute podcast.
My wife's not home.
It's lucky for you. My wife can't speak English, which is great, because I can say whatever I want. So if I bought her online. No, I'm kidding. I'm absolutely joking. I'm joking.
Oh my god.
No. What was I going to...
Come on, don't go there.
I'm joking. What was I going to say? Yeah, I think 2025 is going to be genuinely interesting at Ferrari, because it could go either way, because Charles is an incredibly quick driver, and Lewis has to adapt to a new team, new engine, new car, and it going into a team that's not really his from the outset. He has so much to adapt to. However, when Lewis is comfortable in a car, that Lewis is fucking quick. So I think it's going to be so interesting.
Lewis will also know how to get the team on his side.
Yeah.
That is a big thing. That is
as long as he learns Italian.
And that's the dumbest argument I've seen. I mean, Kimi is the last driver that won in a Ferrari. and he speaks broken English. So,
I learned your grazie. Why is he Russian? Sorry, I don't know why I did that yet. Anyway, I was having a shit. Yeah. Let's say goodbye. Yes.
Time to wrap it up.
Like, subscribe. So I'll put links to Ahmed, to your Twitter, and anything else you want, Ahmed, let me know, and I'll put it in the description below. I apologize to the audience once again. The casual was here. We're looking for a replacement. We just haven't found one yet. And is there anything you guys would like to say to that?
And if Jason's wife does not kill him after the podcast,
she's Mexican.
next time.
And you know those Latinas are fiery. They started the cartel wars, so I need to be careful downstairs.
Yeah.
If Jason is not here next episode, then you know what happened.
Please don't investigate here, so it's fine. Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys, for having me. It was fun, and I was expecting, as you guys said, like an hour now something, but it was fun to talk with you and bring out everything possible there is to bring.
Good to chat. Cool. Thanks, guys. Enjoy.
Cool,
if you're still here at 2 hours, get a life. Bye.